Emile, thanks so much for coming in, mate.
You're welcome, no problem.
So you're a busy man?
Sometimes, yeah, but most of the time, like, so yeah, I'm here, there and everywhere at the moment.
We were talking just then before we started recording about having like a varied career. Like, I can relate to that myself personally.
One way of putting it.
Yeah,
yeah,
and,
one way.
And how you've come to, being launching this football software now. So how did that come about? Because that's something that you would think maybe starting like a really good tech uni or something like that with a group of mates, and then they get funding or something like that.
Yeah, it was kind of the opposite, really. Everything that I've done has always kind of led to something else. It's never been like, oh, I'm going to go and do this, if you like. It's always something comes up from something else. And luckily, whether it's luck or whether it's just by design, it's always been bigger than the last thing that I did before or previously, which is great. How I got into working a global coach was starts with cage fighting, or MMA, and at that time I was a co-owner of an MMA organisation, Cage Gladiators, which was the first UK MMA show to be on terrestrial television. And we had a terrestrial TV deal, which was on, I think it was ITV3 or whatever it was, 2, I can't even remember now, it's going back. And I was co-owner that. I was based in Liverpool. We produced more fighters to the UFC than anyone else in Europe. I mean, we were really good at what we were doing, especially because, Liverpool is synonymous with fighting, or, whether that be boxing or just combat sports in general. I was doing that, and I was approached by Nicky Holt to do One Night in Istanbul. He'd written a script, One Night in Istanbul, and then I ended up producing that with him. And everything I'm doing today, in a weird way, comes from that. It was kind of a real pivotal moment in my life, considering that everything that I've done over the years, that was a big one. And I ended up producing it. Typical ragtag approach is normal, one of those. Anything that I've ever done, I've never seen problems. It's always just been like, can we do this? Yeah. And then I work out how. I figure it out afterwards. I'll come in and I'll go, okay. And that play was very typical of that. And, there was no startup money. There was no funding or anything else. It took 10 nights in the Empire, biggest house in Liverpool at the time. One of the biggest stages in the country, outside of London's West End. And we did it. It was a massive success. 26,000 people over 10 days. Rafa appeared on stage on the opening night, Steven Gerrard, Jamie Carragher. And ironically, that was when we did the armbands for Michael. Yeah. Yeah, so the opening night, I would have been the first one, yeah. And they had armbands for Michael Shields.
His family were there, weren't they?
That's correct, yeah. So, and it was a huge hit. Rafa comes out on the opening night, brings the cup out, big cheer. And that's wasn't the first time I met him. I'd met him previously, just a little bit earlier, and a mutual acquaintance of ours had introduced me to someone else who took me to Rafa. And that person, actually, I have a lot to thank for, because without him, I wouldn't be sitting here today doing what I was doing. And the play was a massive success, comes back for the second run a year later. We do another play which was crap. And we do 2 plays which were crap. No problem saying that. They were also shit. And at that point...
Were they like spin-offs or just...
No, they were 2 separate plays, of which I never want to think about again. One in Liverpool and one in Dublin. And I always remember being in Dublin, and we just finished, and it'd been a nightmare. The truck had gone off home, and it was me and some of the staff and the crew. And we were in a chippy, and I was buying everyone the food, and they would all go, "How come you're so happy? You've just lost a load of money." And I went, "Well, yeah, I have lost a load of money, but not as much as we could have lost. And also as well, it's the last time I've got to do a play, so I'm made up." And I said at that point, I'd had enough. I came home. I remember I was in the Apple store, and I was saying, I'm going to get a job, a proper job.
Yeah, you were going to be the manager. You were actually in talks with the manager of the Apple store.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know why I was thinking that. I'd had a child, and I was thinking, oh, maybe, it's time to have security or whatever else in my life. And I get a phone call off my friend, who's now become one of my best friends, who worked for Rafa, saying, can you come talk to us? We've got something we'd like you to do. I was like, yeah, okay. I owe you a massive favour. You know, what like Rafa, the kindness he showed us with the play was fantastic, and more so because of Owen. And went to meet them the next day. I thought nothing of it at first. I thought, you know, I always get asked to do things. But no, the next morning, get a call. Can you come see us? I remember going to the Radisson and meeting with them. They were doing this project, could I help on the project? And I didn't want to do it. And I joke about this now. They were planning on producing a show in the arena, like an audience with Rafa Benitez style event. And it was hard work. How it being created by a third party was very poor. So I kind of came in to almost clean a mess up. And we ended up doing an audience with Rafa Benitez in the Empire. So I was employed by Rafa, and I essentially produced that on his behalf, and we did the event, massive event, sold out, great event. And in that, we needed something to illustrate tactics on the stage. And that's where the software was born.
Oh, wow.
And the funny story behind that as well is iPads had only been out, I'd say 2 years at that point. And we created it, and it didn't work. And it wasn't our fault. It was actually Apple's fault. But we faked it, and we got away with it. But I remember saying to him, look, we've created something really good there. You should use it. And this was pre-Chelsea, so he was between managerial positions.
So did it start as an app, an iPad app then?
Just an iPad app, yeah. And it was never meant to be for commercial release. It was more so for him and his staff. And I was saying to him, look, you know, we should do something with it. You should do something with it. It's a legacy tool. It's part of many different things. And we were like humming and hawing. And I remember I went to America. I was in America for 2 weeks. And the morning I come back, I hadn't even cleared customs, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning. It's typical. Rafa phones me, are you back? Yeah, just getting through customs. Can you come and see me? He said, would you stay on and, you know, do Global Coach as a project? Don't think he even had a name then. I was like, yeah, okay, no problem. And I said, what do I think? It was for 6 weeks. And I think I worked with him for nearly 4 years after that. And that's how Global Coach was created. And then when he went to Chelsea, I ended up buying it. It's like the old Remington advert. I liked the company so much I bought it. But it did. And from there, I started to grow it. And the first thing I did from that was I jumped on a plane about 10 days later, went straight to America, to New York, and basically managed to get myself in the offices of the MLS. And they tell it quite funny, actually. The guy I met, he still works for them. And he laughs. He said, I just walked in and told them what they should be doing and why they should be working with me. And he was just like, who are you? You know, type of thing.
So it was all like, you know, whiteboards and stuff like that, and
it still
flip
is.
pads and stuff.
Yeah, it still is. I mean, the irony about what I do now is that you're fighting against, you know, methods which have been tried and tested for years, which work to an extent. The major problems you have within football, with flip charts, for instance, or the markers, you know, on a magnetic board, is two things. One, you're trying to explain to players movement in a static environment, which is hard. And, you know, you may think it sounds easy, but all the markers are the same. Is that me? I move here? Or what? You just can't get it a lot of the time. Two, you've got language issues.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, let's take any of the clubs we've got here. We've probably got 7 different languages spoken, maybe more. Traditionally, training sessions are held in the mother tongue of the country you're in. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Liverpool session or an Everton session will be in English. But even though you've got all these different languages being spoken, and that can cause no end of problems at time. I mean, literally no end of problems, especially if you've got, you know, 20 seconds to bring a sub on and you're trying to explain something. You see it all the time. I mean, you used to see Colin Pascoe in his shorts, like with the flip chart. And I used to sit there going, oh my God. And then you'll read the paper and someone's taking a picture of Mourinho tactics, or, you know, because you could see the flip chart, and it's all out of date. And over the years now, I mean, because this is our 7th year now, that 7 years we've been doing, I kind of can't believe that. But we've seen the change in people being open to technology. You know, managers and coaches now know it's a prerequisite. They know they have to be able to do it. And that's why we teach on pro license courses. So we've been teaching on pro license courses now for a good few years. So as part of what they do to be a manager, say in the Premier League or at the highest level, elite level, you have to have your pro license. And we will deliver part of that, and they will use our software to underpin what they do. So it's very different. Wow. Very different, yeah.
So I always find it fascinating pretty much everybody we've had on the podcast, like how ideas come about, because it's never what you think. It's never like we sat down, we drew a few diagrams or whatever.
No,
it's not with him.
It never is
no,
it?
No. And it's never. You can plan all you like. The reality is you've got to be fluid and flexible. You know, I see all these things about startups, especially with tech, especially like a lot of the tech companies and, you know, the staff or the CEOs or the founders, and they talk some shit because they just like, they buy into the kind of the culture of it. Where I never bought into the culture of it. Did I ever want to have a tech company? No. Was I tech-minded? Yeah, incredibly. Did I have a love for it? Yeah, I did, and a good knowledge before I went into it. But I had to learn an incredible amount, and I'm still learning every day. The problem with tech, it becomes quite vogue. You know, I'm a tech company. I'm a founder of a tech company. I fucking hate that. You know, I hate the term founder a lot of the time. Yeah. It kills me. I have this argument with my best mate. He agrees with me on this. And so many people brand themselves now individually, or, you know, they start off and the you know, this city's the worst for it, but they start off and they'll have an idea or create something little, and the way they write about it or they portray it, it's like they're the greatest thing. But if you unpeel the layers of an onion, and when you finally get down to the middle, you go, actually, what really is it? And it frustrates me that, because I'm not, ironically, even though I'm a talker, I'm not one of the people who shouts about what they do. I'd prefer to be like Batman in the shadows, doing it, rather than talking about it.
We got you on, to be honest.
Yeah, well, you know,
last you for long enough.
I know.
You're not one to take like centre circle. Right?
No, and I mean, sometimes that's twofold. One, it's coming from a city like Liverpool, where we have a tendency to eat our own. You know, we really, really do, and it's such a shame, because, you know, I am one of the biggest proponents of this city. I work all over the world, and I'd like to think I represent it in the right way. The problem I have with is that I go outside the city, and you're welcomed. You come back home, and everyone's, you know, got something to say, and it kills me, because there's so much talent in this city. There's so much, you know, just basic, fundamental, like, knowledge and drive, which you don't see in other places. And everywhere I've been over the world, a Scouser always pops up in a great position, in a company you'd never expect, or doing something you'd never expect. And it's amazing. And, like, I was thinking about this before I came on the podcast, but I was in Philadelphia, and this always kind of sums up why I love Scousers. In Philadelphia 2 years ago, and we were working, I had like 2 boxes, and I was walking through, and my money fell out, and I didn't notice. And someone tapped me, went, "Excuse me," and picked my money up and gave me my money. I went, "Oh, thanks." And they turned away. And then about 3 hours later or something, these people come over to where we were working and start talking to us in Scouser. And we were chatting. He works in football out in New Jersey. And I said to him, "Oh, you know what?" I said, I was walking along before, and I dropped my money, and someone just gave me it. Like, we were talking about being in America and people being kind. And he went, "That was me, dickhead." And I laughed, and I went, how could you, you know, like 2 Scousers, you know, coming together and bumping into each other. Here's one giving the money, you know, to another person who didn't know each other, and the honesty with that. And I always think that kind of sums up, like, but I always have a thing as well that, like, Scousers are like magnets. Somehow we always end up coming together somewhere. So I was on the grassy knoll in Dallas in April, and I'm standing there, and I turn around, and there's my mate who used to be at Liverpool's academy, who I'd seen a few days earlier, but like 2 Scousers on the grassy knoll, it's like a joke, you know.
You obviously had no idea he was going to be there.
Oh, no, we didn't, like, you know, I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what I was wandered down and that, like, and we bump into each other. And that's what I think Scousers have got this. I remember being on, like, I was on the top of the Empire State Building years ago, 20 years ago. And someone tapped me and went, "Are you Sheila's son?" Because my mother, like, I was like, yeah, you know, like, but I everywhere you go, like, whether it be like when I worked in Microsoft in Seattle, one of the top guys was a Scouser, and especially in football as well, you know, obviously you're going to get that. But a lot of us around the world, I have to say.
Sorry, just to take you off on a tangent.
Go on.
But you said Vogue before. You gave me this flashback to phoning you once, and you went, "Just give us a second, just stopping traffic on a bridge in Dublin."
With Vogue?
With Vogue.
Yeah, that's right. So that was the awful play.
Yeah,
she married Brian McFadden, and I was married to that one from...
Is that right,
yeah, Made in Chelsea, is it?
That's
or
right,
whatever it's called. Is it Made in Chelsea or whatever?
I think so.
Or
so she was in the play?
She was, yeah, and she was a model, but wasn't an actress. And Yeah, she was sound, to be fair.
remember you saying
boss. She come over here. She was dead good because I think we rehearsed to play here. What did we? Or she was over for something anyway. She was brilliant. Yeah.
But you were just up the wall at that time. Right?
Yeah. Well, we stopped the bridge in the middle of Dublin to do a photo shoot in the middle of the afternoon, which didn't go down too well. Like everyone people knowing, I was just like, fuck off, just give me a
guerrilla
minute.
tactics,
Yeah, just got to get this sorted.
No permission, just dive in.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the approach I take. If you say I can't do it, I'm going to do it, and I'll find a creative way of doing it if I can.
That's the way. Isn't it? So have you just always been somebody who gets bored quite easily and think, I'm done with this now. What's next?
I don't know. It's a hard one to answer. I don't know. I wouldn't say I get bored. I try and turn that into a positive. I like doing new things because I've got a real hunger and thirst for knowledge. So if I can learn something new, I'll do it. People would say I probably get bored. But, I was talking to my boy the other day in the car. And he was asking me about how long I've worked. And I had a job when I was 12. And I've worked since I was 12. I'm 41 now. I've probably worked about 10 lifetimes. But I never stopped. I never have. That's how I've been. And I've done so much over them years. It's phenomenal, the type of things that I've done across the world from when I was stupidly young. I mean, like 16, I would have just been 16. I was around the world on tour, like literally all around Europe doing things and then coming home and then
with DJs and stuff.
Playing and with bands doing different things. And that was an amazing learning experience because you get to go around the world, like one of my favourite, I love gnocchi, Italian food. The first time I ate it was in Italy. And they're the memories that you have. Like, the first time you ate something, I was in Italy eating it properly, and food always plays a big part in my life, but that's probably what I'm like. So I'm always hungry, I'm always looking to do new things. And luckily over the years, I got to a point where so many things came to me in the end because I've done so many things. I'd like to think that was because I'm pretty stand-up how I work and how I am. I'd always like to think I'm honest. I'm the first to tell you, like, if I don't agree with something, I'll be in your face and I'll be honest, but I'll always stand by you, and I'll always be loyal as well. And they're traits which are not normally in business, especially in independent businesses, because people think of themselves. So going back to technology, you see these tech companies and they get a bit of funding. First thing normally the CEO does all that, goes out and buys a Porsche. We never did that. I never did that. I invested back in the company to try and make it scalable, to make it grow and bigger. I did say I only want to do 5 years. I'm 7 years in, so I don't know how much longer I've got left to go on it, but I'm always doing something different, always. And
why did you only want to do 5 years? Did you want to go and do something else then, you mean? Or
I don't know. I think it was a bit like, was it like Chairman Mao's 5-year plan or something in my head? I think I gave myself 5 years because I had an assumption that that's what you would do with a tech company: create it, grow it, sell it, and then go on to something new. And it turned out not to be like that. And I've kind of rode with that as I've gone. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's like a roller coaster. It's always up and down. But we managed to create something which is really unique. We do really good things with it, and people really like what we do. And we've had great results with it as well out on the pitch, and to see that is really good, and it's very worthwhile. And and it gives me the ability to travel. I get to go across the world. I was looking at, I've got this app which tells me how many places I've traveled to, and in the last 5 years I've traveled around the world 15.5 times.
Oh, wow.
I've been out the country for like well over a year. I've visited like something stupid like 81 countries, and to see them things, to be able to go into like Brazil and to go see, like Fluminese's academy, which is in the middle of essentially the rainforest in the middle of nowhere, and which has produced these players, and it's amazing. So I'm lucky because I don't get to see the touristy things. I get to see real life, because where you go and you're with people who work, live there. So I get to see the real aspects of a city, which is...
That's the best way, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing.
Because otherwise, if you go in the tourist places, you're seeing what they think you want to see.
Of course, and what they want to portray.
Tacky shit
Curated
everywhere.
reality, isn't it? And it doesn't really do the country a favour in some ways.
I think America's indicative of that. America's such a different country. If you don't kind of take the layers off, you're never going to get to what it's really like. You'll get the kind of branded kind of thing they want to give you. Whereas if you really get to know it's such a different country, and I spend so much time there, I have done for the last few years. I'm literally like back and forth constantly. But that's amazing as well at the same time. I mean, it's kind of strange coming back home, like if what side of the road I'm going to drive on, and then sometimes I say like restroom, and everyone laughs at me. What do I say? Restroom. My boy gives me loads of shit. Restroom.
Did you say bathroom as well?
No, because you don't know
Sidewalk.
what it is.
Sidewalk.
And if you say
Jaywalk.
toilet, like they look at you a bit like that.
Sneakers.
Sneakers, yeah.
Soda.
That's creeping in anyway, though. You know,
Sneakers is
I think. See,
I'm bad with trainees. I mean, for me, like it's me one vice. I don't drink. I've never drank. And trainees, I've got a room at home full of them.
Really?
I'm awful. I'm awful.
do you just keep them in the box and like sniff them now and again, or
No,
do you actually
I
wear them?
I wear them, and I go through them like nothing else. 'Cause I don't wear shoes. Very rare I wear
I
shoes.
don't think I've ever seen you wearing shoes.
Yeah, I hate it. Like, I think if I go to court or a wedding, I think that's the only time I'm in shoes and a suit.
Can we just establish in a non like weird way that the smell of a brand new pair of box first trainers is one of the best things?
I
in
was
the
really worried what you were going to say there, you know.
Yeah,
I
I
was like
was.
really
I've just
thinking
got
about that then. No, it does smell good. I could get with that.
New
Like,
car as well. New car smell. Next
Yeah,
level as well.
yeah.
but that
Trainers
goes
is
off
top
after a
notch.
while, doesn't
Does,
it?
yeah.
Kind of like goes a bit nasty. It's yeah. I don't know whether you're lulled into that one because you've got a new car, or you're in a new car and you think, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's that type of thing.
Yeah, it's probably psychological as well.
Yeah, I think that probably is. So, but like I was saying to you before the podcast, I've had such a different background. I mean, crazily different background, and it's equipped me to be able to have, you know, so many life skills and so many, you know, things at my disposal which people wouldn't normally have. But I put a lot of that down to being in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And the skills you have living and surviving here. I mean, don't forget I was a kid who grew up in the 80s in Toxteth. So it was a very different time, very different to what you see now in some ways. I see massively now, so many parallels coming back. It's frightening. And I see parallels with the US here, which is weird, which I never thought I'd see. So like, you know, you go to LA and people talk about Skid Row and homelessness. San Francisco is the worst place I've ever been in the world for it. But you used to go on, you come home, you think it wasn't as bad. Now you come home, you come here, and it's just as bad equally. And that's kind of shocking how them type of things have become acceptable. Things now have become so acceptable here, and I never thought that would happen, especially politically as well.
Yeah.
You know, like the last 5 years, the shift here in the US is crazy.
You do become desensitized to it, don't you? I remember like when, for example, the Tesco and Sainsbury's kind of like cast of homeless people, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer, started to crop up. And every time I'd see them, it'd be like a twinge or a feeling, or like it elicit some like pity, or I'd want to help. And being brutally honest now, they're just part of the furniture of Old Hall Street, because we're always around Old Hall Street, aren't we?
But you'd
And
see
9
it-
times out of 10, I don't really think twice about it.
But say in the past where you'd expect to see it in a city centre. Now you're in the suburbs, and you're seeing in the suburbs
Yeah.
outside the Sainsbury's or a co-op
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
And you go, well, hold on a second. it's
Kirby and
frightening.
McGull, like
Yeah.
miles away from town. And I
Oh,
was
it's like
like,
the match,
what are you
I
doing here? Like,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I suppose it's just growing and growing and growing. Isn't it?
In America, it's different though. So like the West Coast has a huge problem, and there's a reason why there's a huge problem, and it's twofold. One is the weather, because it's good weather mostly all year round, and two, a lot of East Coast and Midwest states give them a train ticket and money to go to the West Coast, so they ship them out. And I was in Palm Springs last year, and a friend of mine lives there from Liverpool. He's done amazingly well. This guy, he was working for NBC, and he's a tour manager, great life, and he's living in Palm Springs. And he's driving me around. He went, oh, let me take you to the hobo shower. It's like, what's the hobo shower? He takes me to this fountain. And the city of Palm Springs had spent like $1 million on this fountain. And it was a big thing to like unveil it. And as the mayor's there and everything unveiling it, is this homeless guy stripped off, naked, having a shower. And in the end, it became hobo shower, where all the homeless just go and have to shower in this fountain. And they've tried to stop it, but I think they've given up now. So there's a hobo shower in the middle of Palm Springs, which is this gorgeous $1 million fountain, but it's a hobo shower lake. So
At least it's got its use, hasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, it's mad though. We were talking the other week, Greg and I, when we were just walking through town, like Castle Street, I think it was. And I don't know why we were talking about it, but we got onto the subject of like the society becoming cashless. And it's like, what happens to homeless people now? Because less and less people are carrying less and less change.
Well, you know, in London, that some homeless people have got card readers.
Really?
Yeah.
We joked about that.
Really?
Yeah. Straight up, they've got card readers. That, you know, though, like aside from that, that terrifies me. The concept of a cashless society. One thing working in technology is learning about things like that, and it terrifies me. The risks are massive. Cashless society and digital door locks. terrify me,
Yeah,
which sounds dead stupid.
I'm not feeling digital door locks now.
But you've got a digital lock on cash. There's no difference. So there's no difference between a digital door lock and your debit card now. When
Is
you
this
think
something
about
you've
it.
learned from the work that you're doing now then?
Yeah, and
'Cause it
things
can be
that I'm
easily hacked.
interested in as well. Like, so, I mean, I've always had an interest in technology, politics, because of how I grew up. And when they kind of combine, and when it becomes either like, you know, a civil liberties argument, which you see a lot of, you know, WikiLeaks is a good example of that. Snowden is an even better example of that. And how technology is being used and is being used in different ways, which counter what it should have been used for. You know, Facebook's a great example of that in terms of how Facebook deals with data. You know, you've seen the Cambridge Analytica things, and you know, I knew about that well before it broke massively. There was so many different independent articles and news sources around that of what was going on, and it's I think it's really frightening. I think Elon Musk is quite interested in that field because he talks about them things. I mean, he talks about AI obviously as being a really scary thing, but you know, if you kind of, if AI is up here and you kind of go down, we think of AI and we think of it being so far away and something which isn't real to the average person, but the concept of what that is and the problems which come with that are no different to having a cashless society. Or, you know, okay, let's say for an argument, you know, the banks go down, there's power cuts or something, you know, the general infrastructure of the internet is compromised, which is conceivable. Anything is conceivable in that way. How'd you pay for things? There'd be riots. It would be madness. So the concept of, you know, having no cash is, I think though in Liverpool, it'll never happen. And I have a theory about that as well, of why that will be. And it kind of fits into why Uber doesn't work here as much as well, because Liverpool is such a cash city still to this day. You know, we've always had a different economy, shall we say, at play here, which is so moulded into our local society and culture. So there's always cash. And I think that's why Uber never worked, because you can't pay cash. And our drivers can't take cash as well. And I think that we'll always have a bit of it in Liverpool, but it does them, you know, cashless society and digital door locks. You couldn't pay me to have that at all. I would never have it. And you know, I was reading there, so I was listening to something, and there was it was a podcast, and they were talking about, and I know this anyway, the default on all these devices. So you call them Internet of Things devices. So basically like your doorbell, so your Ring doorbell. And there's another good example now that Ring were purchased by Amazon, and Amazon have been making the recordings of Ring in America open to the police without a warrant.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and they're using it to essentially create like CCTV systems, but ad hoc. So if you think about it, if you've got a road, so we'll argue to say there's 30 houses in a road, and 10 of them have got a Ring doorbell, and the sporadic or the place throughout the street, they will probably cover a whole street in unison. And things like that are terrifying. And then the defaults as well. Most of these devices have the same defaults. So they're shipped with a default number or a passcode, of which so many people don't change. And things like that, you know, you're giving up so much. There's a lot of, I think we're in a real age of where we're transitioning to so many different arguments. One about like data as a monetary thing, because we don't understand that as a concept, how valuable data is. And for years, we're just giving it away.
It's too late now.
Yeah, I think to an extent it is.
The horse is bolted now.
I have no solutions to it either. I think it's terrifying in many, many ways. And I'm not one of the people who are like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist in that way. I've come to the conclusion that most conspiracies actually are kind of born out of people doing inept things, people just not doing things in like the proper way, or doing it in such a way which leads to an interpretation which is probably the opposite of what's gone on. And you see that in so many different things. But the transition of how and what we do with data is phenomenal. You know, we're seeing it all the time with politicians. I mean, you look now at the election, how many people have had to stand down because of past social media histories? You know, we've got it here in this city, prospective MP candidates who've come out and said things, who are in a difficult position now because of what they've said. And kids have no concept of that. And you've got kids growing up, putting everything out there on social media. And, you know, people look at it with jobs. There's no expectation of privacy. The CPS case a few years ago brought that up. There was a case of a CPS. I think she was a lawyer. I think it was a woman. And she put something on social media, got sacked, took them to tribunal. And the judge was very clear. No, there's no expectation of privacy. You've given it up.
Yeah.
That's quite scary. It really is.
It is. I mean, I think about maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, I read an article and it said, in fact, it was a quote from an article, and it said something along the lines of, if you're not paying, you are the product.
Yeah.
And so there was like a light bulb in my head straight away then. And I mean, this is the thing. And this is how they get you. See, I haven't used Facebook, like, you know, posted on it regularly, gone on for a number of years, but I've still got an account.
Still got it.
Why have I still got an account? Because I need one. So first of all, you can't have a business page without having a personal one. Secondly, how many things do you use your Facebook login to log into? Spotify, loads of things. So
okay, but do you know what that does when you do that? Do you know actually how that works?
you're giving that app access to your data that you've put into Facebook, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but not only your data, your friends' data as well. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so this was a big part of what really kicked things off. Pre-Cambridge Analytica, before that, there was a lot of this coming out. And they released, I think it was 2016, maybe earlier. Oh God, no, it could be 2015. They released a developer kit, what we call them SDKs. And in that, you could use your Facebook account as a login for other things. So everyone jumped on the bandwagon because it was easy. The amount of data you could pull off that, I remember we were doing a project at the time and we built something, pulling the data out, and I was horrified. You know, your friends' birthdays, what they like, that's incredibly valuable. I mean, you know, 20 years ago, you'd be go to a marketing agency trying to work out what that was. And now you can pull it in an instant.
Probably the email addresses as well, because a lot of people...
Oh, no, you got email addresses. Phone numbers as well, if they haven't
protected. People just put the mobile number on Facebook.
Yeah.
Bizarre, innit? But all that data still lives there, which in itself is quite frightening.
Yeah, but even if this is the thing, people like, even if they took the phone numbers off, they're still having things like Messenger on the phone.
Yeah.
Which is basically, it's just like giving your phone number anyway. Because if it's pinging up on your phone, just like a text message or WhatsApp, then they've basically got your number anyway.
Social media, I brought Rafa to Twitter to social media. And I remember writing this piece explaining why I think he should do it. And I used to essentially be Rafa on Twitter. So we'd do the tweets and various different things, and he would write things, and I would say, yeah, write this, or, you know, maybe from a translation perspective, or just saying maybe this would be quite good if we said this. And it was at that point I pulled back from social media massively. It was that, and there was another instance with someone I know who was sacked from quite a high profile job in football, because of a social media incident. A very strange one. You know the incident I'm talking about. Yeah, a bizarre one. And that really scared me at the time. And I remember pulling back. So after that, I very rarely tweeted.
So sorry. So what made you pull? Is it responses
Two
that
things.
Rafa was getting?
One, it was understanding how powerful it is. So that was a major thing. So, you know, not tweeting as him by mistake. So little practical things. Yeah, that was one. But two, watching what happened to the person I know and the situation that they put themselves. I wouldn't say they put themselves in. I would say what social media allowed them to put themselves in that situation. And also as well, the negativity what was starting to come from it, the toxic culture, and seeing, you know, especially when Rafa went to Chelsea, really seeing a toxic culture, seeing some of the things that were being said, aimed at, it was horrible. And if you ever watch, or if you can, see the tweets going to someone while a football game's on, it is unbelievable. It's horrible. Yeah. And that really kind of made me pull back. Me and my mum were talking about this the other day in regards to the current political climate and, you know, what's been happening in regards to social media. And I was dead honest, said, I'd be fucked if you went right back. I mean, I remember posting I wanted to cut Cher Lloyd's head off the X Factor. I can't even remember why. I think she just did me head in. Now, if I wanted to be an MP and I decided, you know, if someone pulled that tweet up, I'd probably be, you know, a terrorist sympathiser or someone to cut a head off, and I'd be gone. And that's the realities of it. And that comes from someone who...
Think of what music you'll have deprived the world if you...
The thing is as well,
terrifying. I mean,
I think there's two caveats when those things are pulled up though. I think, first of all, it's the age. Like there was something that Declan Rice posted when he was like 15, which is which is outrageous, really. But he was 15. But the second caveat is, even if you weren't 15 and you were like 30 or whatever, so I'm presuming you were around 30 or in your 30s when you posted that tweet you're talking about. It's so new to us. So new. We don't really we still don't understand it, do we? Really?
You're talking about the concept of a social media age. So, like, I might be 41, but I might have a social media age of a 3-year-old. And ironically, people in power or people in positions of power, especially politicians, and I think older politicians, fall prey to that massively, and they don't understand the concept of it and how powerful it is. But I think we've seen, you know, and Trump is a great example of that in terms of how social media was manipulated to such a huge extent, and the kind of the outcomes of that and how they can last. And I think I don't have a solution. I don't know what will happen going forward, but I think something has to happen. But the danger is, and it's a civil liberties argument all the time, and I always liken it back to, you know, the ACLU in America would represent the Ku Klux Klan in civil liberties cases, and the reason why they would do it was basically a freedom of speech argument, and the argument for the Ku Klux Klan having freedom of speech and taking it away. If you take away their freedom of speech, you take away your opportunity to stop that as well. And that's the danger with social media. If you regulate it to such an extent that people regulating it can silence you, and that's where it's so dangerous. It's so difficult, and I think that's the age and the problems we have going forward nowadays. Is it's going to become more apparent, and I don't know what you do, and I don't know how you do it.
Sorry, that's me tile. They've just got, and it's a novelty. And leaning on it. It's a tile. It's if you lose your keys.
If you lose your keys, you
can press a thing on your phone. But because it's always in my pocket, I lean on it, and then it starts making all weird noises.
Technology.
Okay, so let's talk about your tile.
Oh, here we go.
All right. Okay.
Don't say it's listening.
Well, theoretically it is, because for it to work, it has to talk to your phone. For you talk to your phone will give it a location, and it'll give it a geolocation. So what's stopping either a third party getting access to that data at some point? So, you know, the Strava, the runner, you know Strava?
Well, the guys who own the Athletic started, didn't they?
Okay, so Strava,
So that's like a GPS with you, isn't it, when you're running?
You go running and everything else.
Yeah.
Last year there was a massive problem that a lot of the US military were using Strava because you can share your stats and everything.
Yeah, and if they're running on base in Afghan or whatever. Yeah.
But they weren't running on bases in Afghan, they were running on bases which shouldn't exist. So that was just going up, and you could pull it, compare it to Google Maps, and you could find out where they were. And they were posting that on like Facebook or something. You can correlate that or triangulate, and you can find out where there's theoretically a secret base or something. They're the realities of dealing with, like, you know, Internet of Things, you know, devices. It's like you see fridges connected to the internet. Why does the fridge have to be connected? Yeah. I mean, what's the point? I mean, I love technology. I'm in ways I'm a geek like that, but I don't need my fridge connected to the internet. What's it going to tell me to clean it? It's like, it's ridiculous. So I personally, I know I pulled my social media back massively over the past few years, and I see Facebook I use Facebook for two things. One, to tell people I'm alive, that I've arrived where I've arrived, because if I'm arriving like in the middle of the night, I can't tell people here. And two, I put pictures of my child up so people can see him and they want to see it. That's it. Instagram, I take pictures of everywhere I go. It's something I like doing. I won't use Twitter at all. I'll read bits of it, but I pulled away from it. But I find most of it, except for Instagram, which I actually really like, being completely toxic now. Facebook especially. You know, it's like that, just the cranks of which I know are just all on there.
Did you see that thing about Jessie from Little Mix?
And about I didn't see the promo, but I read about it,
On Facebook specifically?
Like awful. No, it was on Twitter. It was like the abuse she was getting was just unbelievable. When she was on X Factor originally, because they called like the fat one, didn't they, or something?
Yeah, and a sloth. And
every time she was performing, every time she was on telly, she was getting pelters from everybody, like, and then they were inboxing her. But then what happened was, I think she lost loads of weight, didn't she, or something? And she got like a she had loads of work done as well. But then what happened was she started using it for validation for herself. So she'd put a pic on there and she'd be inherently checking.
Right.
You know, looking for praise. And then even if she had like 100 good comments,
she'd see that one negative.
If there was one, she'd focus on that. She'd be crying her eyes out again. It was.
My mother does that though. My mum, because of what she's done, comes in for a lot of grief on social media, And she won't see all the positive ones. She'll see the negative one out of everything. And I always try and balance it up. Look at all this. But I get that. I think it's our nature to do it.
Yeah, that's not a social media thing. That's a human thing, that.
It is, but it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about people branding themselves, individuals becoming this brand as well. I think it's really dangerous. I've got a 10-year-old child who loves Instagram.
I was just going to mention, Blaze, how do you navigate his use of it? It's difficult.
I do and I don't. It's really hard. I mean, I'm lucky because he's a clever kid and he's open with me. He doesn't hide anything. So he'll be the first to come to me, and he's got 800, 1,000 followers, all real. That's a 10-year-old child. Yeah, has got that many people. And I had a situation where I was in another country with him, and I'd say, who are you on with? So we'd go live on Facebook, on Instagram, and he'd say, I'm talking to me fans. What fans? What are you on about? And then, I forget where I don't even know. I was sitting somewhere. I think I was by a pool. I'd taken a few days off, and I'm like, I've seen him, and I've just clicked on his live, and there's all these kids talking to him, and it's so easy to cross the line. It's so very easy to where I've had people, someone created a fan page of him, and I had to message them and say, look, you need to take it down. And I think it was a kid. I don't know, but I couldn't put my hand on my heart and say it was a kid. And it was you go and remove that. And it's frightening. It's so hard to do. And you don't know whether you're doing right or doing wrong, because he uses it in a good way. He uses it very positively. He's not negative. He doesn't use it to abuse other kids. But that's, one thing I've learned being a parent is how horrible social media can be for kids, and WhatsApp especially.
Yeah.
WhatsApp, I was eating dinner with him the other night, and in a space of 5 minutes, he'd had 200 notifications on WhatsApp from group messages of kids.
Yeah, groups are killers, mate. The thing is, it's like when we were in school, which isn't even that long ago, really, But if you had a bad day in school, if you were, not even if you were bullied, that's a bit of a, a lot of
people give you
in
shit.
school,
It's
but
just how
even
it
if
is in
someone,
school.
there was a bit of banter you were on the receiving end of, it finished at half 3.
Yeah, you shut your door.
Finished at half
Now
3.
you don't. Yeah. It's horrible. Between that and the Xbox or PlayStation, where they're all talking to each other as well, you're constantly monitoring it, but at the same time, you're trying to let them grow. It's very, very difficult.
I don't have any children, but it must be a tough one, because I, like you, Emile, I really appreciate the technology. I really appreciate that we're living in this age where we can access it. I've managed to grow a successful business in a very short period of time with a very small amount of money and a relatively small team. And I've only been able to do that now. I wouldn't have been able to do it 15 years ago. I literally wouldn't have been able to do it.
Because of technology.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a flip side to all this. And, Penn and Gillette.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Penn. Penn's the big one, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Penn said on a podcast last month, he's a really clever guy. He come out with a great thing. He says, we have so much information on our fingertips. I've just read the paper this morning. If I go back a century, what I've read in this paper was probably more that was contained than what was in a library at that point. But what frightens me is we've become dumber for it. We've got all this amazing information at our fingertips. We've got the ability to do so much with it, but we don't. What do? We take pictures of our food. Yeah. We take pictures of ourselves, essentially. Yeah. Blue steel. Yeah. Or we we use it to abuse, where it could be used for so good, for so much good. But the reality is, we go back to base nature rather than using it as a tool to expand ourselves. In many ways, we've used it as a tool to close things down. But then again, you have things like this concept of podcasts. 20 years ago, we wouldn't have been sitting here talking like this. To do something like this, we'd need to be on television or be, have a huge
studio,
amount of
runners running around and all that.
Costing so much money, where technology now puts in your hands, and you've got people like Joe Rogan. I mean, I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan.
Same.
And how and what he does is very, very interesting. And I don't think YouTube likes that at all. I don't think YouTube, especially where they use their algorithm with them. I mean, you have to search for Joe Rogan. You have to search for his stuff. Even when you're a subscriber, he'll always come down the bottom of your list. His videos can have, say 10 million views, but it won't be trending.
That's a very recent thing, though, isn't it? Something's happened there, because he also used to go live with every podcast, and now they're never live. And that's literally the last, 6 weeks or so? Is it something like that?
Because they're having problems. and they're having problems with content, and they're having problems with where people are pulling them on things itself. And basically, it's very arbitrary how they'll revoke things. And that's really scary, I think, because podcasts like Joe Rogan's and other podcasts like that have a really big place in our society nowadays, because, you know, this the concept of fake news and everything else. And I'll ask you this as a journalist. I think that as a concept is terrifying for a journalist now, because your integrity has gone as journalists because it's been hammered over the past few years. Yeah. Do you find that's an issue? I'll turn it around, at least for you.
Completely.
You know?
Fake news is a tag that gets thrown at anyone who's in the media at the moment, isn't it? And it's very difficult because it's so, when you look at it on Facebook, which I think I read that 60% of people in the States get their news through Facebook.
Yeah. Really?
Which terrified me.
Yeah, well. But I understand it, because if you watch the news channels over there now,
Jesus Christ,
but that's where it's terrifying. The news channels are so polarized there. There's no in between. So you've got Fox News, and you've got, say, MSNBC.
CNN,
CNN is that side though. There's nothing in between. So I tend to watch MSNBC and
why
CNN.
Are they kind of middle ground?
MSNBC not so. It would be more left leaning, but not left leaning as we'd see it. Fox News is just crackpot central, like. But you know, in the middle of that, there's nothing. So I think that's why there's a hunger for things like Joe Rogan and you know, podcasting that way. But as a journalist, I mean, and you've transitioned, not in that way, like, but you've transitioned through from being print based to being purely, you know, online in terms of your career. You've seen a massive shift. I mean, essentially, you've been in a version of the Industrial Revolution for journalism, haven't you, over the years?
Yeah, I think so. The biggest change that I've noticed, which everyone has really, is the sort of insidious nature of the online model in terms of, I don't like the phrase because it's been a phrase that has been used to batter me and every other journalist out there at some point, but it's it is true to an extent, is clickbait.
Yeah.
And so at what point...
Come on, our local paper's the worst for it in the world now, I have to say.
And it's at what point you compromise news values. And I don't even mean fake news, but you compromise the responsible way to tell news, or even just a tasteful way or an informative way in order to try and elicit clicks.
But do you think journalistic integrity is dead then?
No.
Okay.
Not fully, because Greg's new employers are great, and the
I'm
feedback,
a big fan of that.
And the feedback that you see even in the comments below, like we were talking the other day, like when he worked at the Echo, and you still see it now, like the comments are toxic. Doesn't matter what the paper is, and that's just, I suppose, just Twitter as well, isn't it? It's just, listen, I think anywhere where you can use a name that isn't your own, like a, you know, Big Lad 65 or whatever. It's going to be toxic, and that's why Twitter for me is like a fucking giant chat room, and that's why it's so toxic. But The Athletic, right? It's every comment's positive. I've never seen anything like it. It's mad.
But I think I know why, and it's because people invest in it themselves. So because they pay, they invest in it. The Echo, and I've got no qualms about, you know, naming them as being a prime example of that, because I think they have they have a duty of care, which they, you know, dispense with massively, and they have over the past few years. Two, they have a huge amount of political bias in terms of their editorial staff, which is really, really bad. And I think it was worse. Now I question whether they just give a fuck, and the quality of journalism is so poor. The content is so poor, it's embarrassing for a city of this size, of this culture, of this knowledge. You know what is here. We accept that, and I think that's why so many people are going to different things.
Yeah, I agree.
mean, you know, you're at the Athletic. Why? For that reason, more than likely. How many people have gone over to, you know, a business like that or a platform like that because they don't want to be part of those things anymore? But that's frustrating.
They used to be, local papers used to be the voice of a city.
Massive,
didn't they? You know, they'd say and then people would read it, and you know, if they weren't, Liverpool's had major issues in the past with a disparity between how they think and how the rest of the country thinks, and particularly London. We all know about it. We haven't got to talk about it now. And then you pick up your local paper and it's like, yeah, that's what we're about. Liverpool, the Echo stopped being a voice for the city a long time ago.
I think as well before it transitioned into the digital era, the Echo was excellent at campaigning journalism. It wasn't perfect back then, by the way.
No, I know it wasn't.
No newspaper's perfect, but
they did something.
But we actually had Catherine Jones and Mary Murtagh, who were social affairs correspondents. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any regional papers that would have someone who's a social affairs correspondent anymore. And their remit was just to tell stories that affect people in Liverpool. Like that's all our remit. But specifically that, and Mary used to do. She was almost like a social worker.
Yeah.
Sometimes she was like a wonderful person, journalist, but I think there still are very good journalists at the Echo and in regional press. But the model's been so skewed again. So you'll still see like important stories being told. I would say by the Echo about the guy who'd lost so much weight because of the
pips.
Yeah. Joe Thomas, who writes about crime and does some really good sort of important pieces on gun crime in the city.
See, I'll argue that one out with you though.
All right, but
I would argue that one.
But hear me out. I think it's been squeezed out of all regional press and probably even some national press by the demand for news that fits into clickable news that fits into like Facebook.
But that has to be editorial.
For advertising revenue.
Yes.
So it's the same as radio then, isn't it? In a way.
Well, I work in commercial radio, and so I would say now in a weird way, there's kind of no difference. But what I will say is, so this morning in the Echo, there was 2 articles about the same thing. And there was 3 loud bangs at 11 o'clock last night. I heard them. One article was, there was 3 loud bangs at 11 o'clock at night. We don't know what it was. And then there were sirens. And then 2 down from it was 3 shots fired in this, police attended. It was the same thing. But the editorial process either hadn't caught it or B, didn't want to catch it because they knew they're going to get clicks on that one going 3 loud bangs. And it's as stupid as that. That's not journalism.
No.
That's just traffic.
No,
that's just moving.
So,
this is the same. This is the same.
The first story to have been taken down, and then the second one to have been because
the same one just
informative,
updated. The same one updated. Because it'll say update originally posted, then updated by. But like this is the same. What do you expect? This is the same paper that creates a story around a footballer's bird posting a picture on Instagram in a bikini.
That's not just the Echo, is it?
No, but that goes all the way through to the Nationals now.
Mirror,
I mean, the sidebar is shaming the Mail.
You'd expect it in them, though. You'd expect it in them, but a local one shouldn't. I don't think. Maybe the odd one about a footballer, whatever. I don't know. The odd feel-good news story.
But there is an argument with that now, though, because we've become this culture of sensationalism and commercialism, and so therefore they are the things which drive traffic. And in reality they are the things that people are interested in. But what I can't get is like a live feed of McDonald's being closed on Lord Street. It's McDonald's. It hasn't opened. Or a shop closing down. Our reporters at the scene. When someone's being shot, 5 minutes away, but there's no reporter on the scene. They've taken it up they've taken it from the police the next morning. I go, oh, come on. It's, there should be a media outlet in the city which represents what the city is about, which can campaign and fight. I mean, you're a really good example of that, with Michael and what, you did, what you could do because you were at the paper and the position you were in and the position of the paper at the time. Hicks and Gillette, another good example, of within football. Do you think we get that again?
No, I don't.
I'd like to hope so, but I just don't know.
Your good work that you did though with Michael, for example, would probably be compromised by having to word it in a clickbaity way.
How many clicks did it get?
Exactly, yeah.
Because that's how it would be measured rather than the actual impact of what you did.
Content, the quality of it, yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem is that really the industry as a whole was too slow to the change, and we say this all the time that what they probably should have done, which is easy in hindsight, is decided to go behind a paywall and collegiately as a national and regional press before it transitions
to what it is now.
Yeah, and the legacy of not doing that has meant that you've got to rely on the click revenue for.
I think though most of them were risk averse with it. But what you're seeing now is that when it's being done properly, Athletic being a good example, there's revenue streams there, and they're really well respected and revered, and I think that's really important.
Do you know what you were saying then about because we have there's this like thing that people mention about the Echo, and my opinion, so I think they live, and again all the regional centres with with Reach will do sort of content like this. I think they live blogged the opening of a massive Greggs, right? So my personal opinion is that isn't inherently newsworthy, and it's I kind of feel it's embarrassing. As
It's
a journalist.
advertorial,
Yeah,
essentially.
and it blurs the line.
Point, yeah.
However, senior people at Reach take a different view and say it's actually engaging in the community, and it's cultural snobbery to say that that's shit journalism, which they get better with it. And in fact, anything that drives engagement and people are interested in the fact that there's a big Greggs, and a lot of people in Liverpool or that particular area of Liverpool might eat Greggs food, so why shouldn't they cover it? And in fact, it's snobby to suggest otherwise. No, that doesn't come across to what you were saying about, like, Firmino's wife's had her teeth whitened. That's just like prurient shite, isn't it? But again, lots of the press do that. But what do you think about that? It's like,
is that what we're going to be defined by as a city, or is it, like that there's a live blog?
Well, I don't think they would claim that defines the city.
But they're saying it represents the city. They're saying it represents what people do. But sometimes, people do a lot of things. Doesn't mean you have to write about it. I think when you've got a platform, which is a big platform, which can help change and do positive things, you have, it's the Spider-Man thing, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's the reality to it. I think for so long, though, we've shirked that responsibility here now as a paper. It has. And I've known and dealt with that paper since I was 16. I mean, one of the first articles ever written about me was Debbie Jones. Debbie wrote a first article about me. I had 2 articles, remember, in the space of a month. One was written by Kevin McManus, who described me as a young Pete Wiley, and I became mates with Pete Wiley later, and it was great. I still laugh about that now. And to be fair, I find it a real compliment. And Debbie wrote the first article on me going back a long time. And at the time, it was an institution. When you were there, it was an institution. But then the shift and the change and the watering down, and we're left with what we've got now. And the difference is now, in the past, there was nothing to compare it with. There was no comparison. There was no competition, essentially. But now there's competition. This is competition. Technology breeds competition. A Joe Rogan or a good podcast or, a website, even if it's paywall or not. There's mediums for people now, which is accessible, and we should be able to do things with it. Unfortunately, though, most of the time we spend taking pictures of our food and various other pieces of shit, and and it doesn't do what it could do, and that's such a shame. Yeah, it really, really is, especially for a city like Liverpool.
No, you're right. But what Rogan positively and that sort of long form podcasting does on like a international or national scale, like Rogan, and even hopefully what we're trying to build here, is it allows a genuine conversation with nuance to emerge. So it doesn't
with no agenda.
It doesn't filter into the rigid structure of a conventional news story. So you could have Bernie Sanders on one week, and you can listen to it
you can
for
have
like
Alex
an hour
Jones
and a
on
half. I was thinking of Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Now, my view of Alex Jones before I heard him on Rogan was like he was the most reprehensible human being you could imagine.
I'll debate this.
I still don't think anybody who claims the parents of kids who've been shot in a school shooting are actors is defendable.
100% I agree.
Having listened to him on Rogan, I saw shades of grey in his persona, and I thought, like, okay, he's not like a devil.
And when did you first hear about Alex Jones?
I first heard about him in who's the author? It was another podcast.
Okay,
he was a British author, and he wrote The Butterfly
Effect. Oh God, I know you're talking about. Yeah,
and he had done. He knew him years and years ago.
2005, I read his stuff first. InfoWars back then, and he was featured in. There used to be an independent publishing house called Disinformation. Amazing. They threw out about 10 books. Really big books. Like one was being called "You Are Being Lied To," and it was the first concept of media manipulation, and like Noam Chomsky was in it a lot, and things like that. I'd say something though, I will say this. I heard Noam Chomsky speak in, God, we're talking 15 years ago, possibly, in Liverpool, maybe 12 years, no God, 15 years, and he stood up and he said, everyone's looking at the Iraq war, you need to be looking at Venezuela, and he reamed off a load of stuff. And everything he said essentially came true. But around that time, I remember reading Alex Jones' stuff. And if you read what he was writing then, he was essentially very left-wing. you know, very, very much independent of thought and very much opposite of what he became. And his journey is bizarre in what it is. And I actually feel really sorry for him, because if you watch the Joe Rogan podcast with him, whilst A, it's hilarious on one hand, especially I wish Eddie Bravo would have choked him out, but B, the sadness which come out of it, for me, seeing this, he's actually a very clever individual. I fundamentally disagree with 99% of what he says, but to see his vulnerability, his mental health issues being shown, you know, to the world. But that
freak show type of thing.
But that podcast, that actual one, was really interesting. They had some stupid, like 16 million hits in 7 days. It didn't trend. And he subsequently went and did a podcast of his own thing, talking about how the algorithm stopped it happening. And that's a big argument in the US right now, with the political parties, about how the algorithm is left-leaning. I actually don't think it is. But then left-leaning in the US is very different to left-leaning here. And so the concept of what that is, left-leaning essentially in the US means anything which isn't right-wing, you know, and what is like quite extreme. And that kind of shows you how it is over there. But there's another good example of something which is arbitrary in an algorithm essentially choosing or promoting what you see. And that's terrifying. I mean, I remember this. The best analogy with something like this is my boy, when he was like 2 or 3, I used to have live TV, so like Sky or whatever, in the house. And he started to watch adverts. And I remember one Christmas, he'd ask me for things, which I used to go, why does he want that? And then I realised it was coming from adverts. When I got rid of live TV, it stopped. Stopped instantly. And then he moved to YouTube. And he used to watch American YouTubers, especially the kids, you know, like opening
boxing
and toys. Yeah. And I used to spend my life in Target in America or Walmart, where he'd seen these things only you could get there, and finding them. And the power of what that became because of how the algorithm was working and what it was pushing him to.
Yeah.
And that's a real argument.
Yeah,
and there was a Joe Rogan podcast where there's an independent, I forget her name, a female journalist who'd done a really good podcast on Venezuela. And everything since then was flagged as sensitive content. There was nothing sensitive about it. I mean, literally nothing. It was just a different view. And they flagged that as being sensitive content. And that in itself could stop people seeing it. That's where I think it becomes really, really scary.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's no secret as to why conspiracy theories are so popular now. It's because of these algorithms. It's because of, obviously, the internet brings everybody closer together, and you could be into the weirdest thing. You could be into, like, I don't know, some weird sniffing new trainers.
Yeah, Greg.
Or like
fetish.
I'm gonna start that show.
Some obscure fetish, you know. And you'll find someone who likes it as well, and that's what the internet does, which can be good. But obviously, you can see where that can go wrong as well. But also, like, if you could watch one video on YouTube. Say it's not even your YouTube, right? So my YouTube now, my like recommended tab and all that is all footy, Joe Rogan, maybe one or two other things, maybe a couple of comedians, yeah? That's my YouTube, that's my feed, and that's curated by what YouTube thinks I'm going to like based on what I am watching and have watched. Now, if my mate WhatsApps me a video, right, and then I click it, it then opens in my app, right? That then poisons my own algorithm.
Oh, shit, didn't think of that.
Yeah, it does. Because your iPhone, it won't watch it in, I think actually some of them, you can watch them in WhatsApp now, but you don't want to because it's a shitty little screen. So you open it in the app, right? But then it's filtering that thing that somebody else has sent you into your little curated magazine, if you like. And then you go on again to watch Joe Rogan. I'll flick the telly on, right? Watch YouTube on a telly. And they'll be like, say if my mate sent me something that's like really right-wing about like a feminist, you know, getting shouted at or something like that. All this fucking mad right-wing crazy shit will start creeping in to my feed. And again, all I have to do is maybe think, just out of curiosity, there could be a clickbaity title there, I'll click on that one thing. And before I know it, I've watched 2 of them. I'm in the rabbit hole.
And that's the danger nowadays. And I think that's why people become extremists very, very quickly, whatever the spectrum is, you know. And that's where I think I am seeing change. And, you know, Tommy Robinson's a great example of that. You know, I have a very particular history with the far right, especially when they come to this city. I'm one of the first ones who will go and put it on them right away. I've no qualms about that. And but when Tommy Robinson came here last time, it shocked me, and I was the most disappointed I've ever been in Liverpool. And it's 10 minutes away from the studio, and you've got maybe 200 people coming out and supporting them in Bootle, where the poverty levels are massive, crime is massive. It's an area which has been neglected for so long, and people were supporting a far right extremist, and that's terrifying. And then you've got the police dragging the deputy mayor at the time by her hair out the way to protect Tommy Robinson. And you know what? It all came via social media. And the irony of that is 3 hours later, there's a video of me shouting at them, filmed by them, and him and the others commenting on it. And that in itself is like, hold on a second here. People have got to get their heads around that now. And you're wondering why there's 200 or 300 people there. That's why there is. I grew up in the 80s where people were, spray painting NF, or like NF was smashing News from Nowhere up and things like that. Nothing's changed. In fact, I think it's actually bigger and worse than it's ever been before, because in ways now it's become acceptable. And I think that's what I kind of like. That's why I kind of like Joe Rogan. He talks about confirmation bias and these confirmation bias bubbles. And we tend, and I know I do it myself, we fall prey to that so much. We tend now to surround ourselves by people who are of similar opinions. And this concept of just because I disagree with your opinion, you're wrong. And hold on a second, what happened to debate?
Yeah.
What happened to engaging and educating? Because that's where it's come from. I might not agree with you over everything, but we'll talk about it. Am I going to fall out with you? No, I'm going to respect you.
Doesn't make you a bad person. Just because you've done a bad thing or you have a particular viewpoint, you're still capable, I believe. And that's why Rogan works so well, because he just believes in having good conversations with you, no matter what your background is, what your beliefs are, because let's talk about it.
And you know what? Like I love his podcast. And I fundamentally disagree with so much. Like, I'm a vegetarian. He hunts, he eats elk. I couldn't kill an animal if I wanted to. And that kills me. But do I not like him for it? Well, no. I respect his argument with it. I understand his argument massively. It doesn't take away from who he is as a person. Or is his views any less valid than mine? No. And I think that's the danger. And we're seeing that now in society. We're seeing that now, especially with this election. You're seeing how Corbyn has been, portrayed to be... Boris Johnson this morning called him a crackpot for saying, we should have free broadband for everyone else. I'm sorry, what's crazy about that? It's broadband essentially, or internet, access becoming a fundamental right. Because how do you log on to something? How can you do something? How can you check your bank in the cashless society we're in? So everyone does need it, but he's a crackpot for that, or he's a terrorist sympathiser, and that's the one which is, rolled out all the time. Oh, he met Sinn Féin, or he met this. Actually, you know what? Everyone met Sinn Féin, including Thatcher's part, Thatcher at the time, and Thatcher's government were talking to them for years, and engaging with them. And things have to change. Things will change as time goes, but you can't be used as a stick to hit you with. It's called progress. Yeah. But unfortunately, now in our political climate, we don't have that anymore.
I think though, like anything, both extremes always shout the loudest.
Yeah.
And when they're shouting the loudest, they'll then find these little confirmation bubbles, to agree with, and then to debate further, and then they start groups, and then. And that's why there's so much noise there.
I talk about that with my mum a lot as well, and I think what I've seen, especially over the years, is that the more extreme you get, the more close they end up coming together, and the more parallels there are with each other, even though they're opposing. Yeah. And I think in a way that's quite frightening nowadays, because
they end up having more in common, you mean, because they're both extremists in a way. Yeah.
And even though they're fundamentally, opposed to what they both believe in, two groups for argument's sake, their extremism pushes them so far away from the day-to-day society and things that it ends up just, instead of being like that, it ends up becoming like that. And there's an irony with that. I don't know what it is, whether it's some weird balance in the world or that, but I think you see it happening more and more nowadays.
Have you ever seen or listened to a podcast called Conversations with People Who Hate Me?
No.
It's really interesting given what we're saying there. It's an American one. And the guy who started it, I think he's like a East Coast liberal. He's gay. And he must have been doing something on social media, and for whatever reason, he was attracting comments. I think it might be on YouTube. That's what it was. He was a YouTuber. I think he might have even done some sort of unboxing type stuff.
Yeah.
And the comments were toxic. homophobic abuse, blah blah blah. So we decided to try and like contact the people who were giving him the worst abuse and say, hey, I know you don't like me and this is what you said. How about I phone you up for a podcast and we have a conversation?
That's great. That.
And eventually enough
That's
did
brilliant.
to do his first series. And then he broadened it out. So the second series was like someone else would go, I'm vegan. And say a hunter, a bow hunter might have been having comments from vegans going, you're a murderer, you're a fascist pig, I hope you kid. And so he'd engineer a conversation between the two and record it. And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, when you listen to them have this conversation and the humanity of two people just talking, once the bluster has subsided, two people, you kind of like, it's just human nature. You're never going to agree and see eye to eye, but the humanity, without sounding corny, seeps in.
Seeps through.
And you just sense that they've walked away from that less hateful than they were when they started.
I think that's the danger with technology, because whilst it gives you the ability to bring them two people together and converse, it can also give you the ability to push them further apart and give them powerful voices sometimes. And it's a dangerous kind of line to go down, but sometimes people shouldn't have a voice because there's some fucking idiots out there, and they shouldn't have a voice, but social media gives them a really powerful voice. And I've seen that. I mean, like, the concept of influencers, especially in Liverpool, is a really interesting one. And you get these, you get like certain ones who become like influencers because they put funny things up, and then they're charging you to advertise with them, and then the ego grows with it and everything else. And,
well, there's meme accounts from Liverpool. I won't name them, but like there are. Who now probably it's a livelihood.
Oh, 100%.
And they're meme accounts. So we had Steph Johnson on, who was absolutely brilliant. Who's Scouse Bird.
Scouse Bird, yeah.
I always confuse her with Scouse Babe, which she wouldn't appreciate, I'm sure. But yeah, Steph's another, because hers is kind of like sort of a legitimate business.
It has
but
become,
then
hasn't it?
It is now multifaceted business. But maybe the ones you're thinking of, they're still livelihoods. They're still turning like
100%.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying it's wrong,
100,000 subscribers.
but then at the same time, it makes me wonder sometimes. And I think it kind of plays into how we are as people from Liverpool in so many ways. We love celebrity. We love showing more than what we actually have, and I think that comes from having nothing. Traditionally, we're still such a poor city. We've got so many kind of things in our way in so many ways, and that's not going to change overnight. So if we've got a way of showing, we've got it, it's a typical thing, new clothes at Christmas and Easter, and got to have a new car. It doesn't matter what the top finance like, but I've got to have that car outside. And that breeds so much pressure. You see the kids going to school on a £500 pie next to a Canada Goose, and you're going, my God, and what happens to the kid who doesn't have it? And it's just so.
Or just the person at the bus stop who's got 500 quid trainees on, waiting for the bus.
Yeah.
When they're off driving age,
I coach basketball, and you'll have kids come in and they can't pay the subs, but they're in £150 pair of trainees, and you're like,
that the materialism comes though from what you've already touched on about the city. And a lot of people, they've come from nothing.
I have. I mean, look, I'm the first to say that. Like, I grew up in a single parents household where my mum went to university, became a lecturer, then gave it all up to fight, for a miscarriage of justice, essentially, and she gave her life for that. Practically, a lot of her most of my adult life. I'm 41, so 30 years this year. It's a frightening thought. I remember going to senior school on my first day, and we both left the house at the same time, and we got the bus opposite each other. She got the bus going that way, and I got the bus going that way, and she started working on the Hillsborough stuff then, and I'm 41, and she's still doing it, and that my whole adult life has been surrounded by that. So that kind of shows you what people can do when they decide to sacrifice and decide, to push things, in an amazing way. Do I think if it would have been any other city in the world, would that have happened? Probably not. There's very few cities which could boast people of that calibre. Michael's case is another example of people came together and supported and pushed and pushed and pushed. If that kid had been from, Durham, he'd probably still be in jail. And that's the reality.
I believe that.
That's what we do. Yeah. They're the positive things. But sometimes we end up so much focused on the negative things, which is such a shame.
I think I don't know though. I think someone who can turn a bit of a hobby, putting memes out, if they can turn that into a business, I think fair play to them. It's not for me, but if they can do that, it's not their fault. It's for me. It's the fucking idiots who.
No, I agree with you.
If you see these vlogs, right, where it's people going through the fucking Mackey's drive-through, going hi guys on the phone. I'm like, this is insane. Why the fuck are you watching this? Right?
It?
No, I'm not watching it.
You know a lot about it.
But right, if the views they're getting, it's fucking insane. But I think, well, do you know what? Fair play to them. They can do that. They can get 100,000 views in 24 hours, right? Yeah. And then they're getting endorsements. They're getting sent gear from Gymshark and protein shakes and tea whiteners.
Fair enough.
Fair play to them.
Kind of got no issue.
It's for me. I like the entrepreneurialism about it.
Okay, so you've got two things there. One, I think we have an inherent entrepreneurship in us coming from Liverpool because we've had nothing. I think we can be the best at the world. I know so many drug dealers, right? If they applied their work ethic, their brain to anything, they would be unbelievable. But they've chosen, or by default, or had no other choice to become what they are. But it doesn't take away that they're entrepreneurs. They're no different to me, or someone who owns a tech company, or who's just created this, whatever. They're no different. They're getting out there and grafting. The concept of grafters, it makes me laugh. We're the only ones who really say that. So we'll say grafters in Liverpool. And when I was growing up, a grafter was someone who worked hard. And the irony of that. But then again, I go, well, actually, hold on. They're getting out there to do something, whether it be rightly or wrongly. But then, the flip side about the social media thing, like the person going through Mackey's, my little boy showed me a bounty hunter called Patty Mayo on YouTube. I never heard this fella. His views are like crazy, millions and millions of views on his thing. And I watched one with him. At first I was like, I think it's like in the south of America or Midwest. I can't figure where out yet, but it's many places I've been to like that. And I watched the first one, it wasn't so bad. Then I watched the second one and it was awful. So this guy is a bounty hunter, legitimate bounty hunter who goes out. So, the concept of bounty hunting over there is different here because how you post bail and your bond. So you've got to bond it out. So bail bondsman does it, you're seeing it on the films and stuff. But as soon as you do that, as soon as you break that bond, they have the power then to take you to jail, get the bond or whatever else. So bounty hunters is a legitimate thing, and everyone's here to dog. I used to watch dog as well. My mate met him from Liverpool, in Hawaii.
Yeah, really?
Danny Widow was on holiday in Hawaii and met him, got a book signed. I was dead jealous. Like, I have to say, I used to love
she passed away
she did, months ago, didn't she? Yeah. I used to love that programme. Okay, so the concept of dog, right? Dog was all right, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was dead nice to them. He'd pray with them or whatever. Whether it was for TV or not, I don't care. But he was sound with them.
Yeah.
This cunt, this Patty Mayo, right, is unbelievable. I have got so much anger to him this week for some reason. Me and Blaze were talking about it. He goes and he turns up at the place and he says, I've come for this person, whatever. And there's always a bit of an argument. And he say, show me the warrant. And he goes, I don't have to show you the warrant. He deliberately antagonises them. The family around them, people around them. Then he tases them, and he sprays them with CS gas. He's got this Hummer all rigged out. He cable tied this mother to the truck, put the chain through it, and was driving with her along the road.
What the
Not like dragging it, but...
Sure, that's illegal, surely.
Well, no, because according to the law, if they're trying to stop him doing his job, they're stopping an officer of the court doing the job. I've never seen anything like it. So it's got to be fuming now.
Boundaries, yeah. And then they'll get a reaction out of you, which means you'll do something else.
They don't need a warrant to go into your house like the police do, because they can go in to get the person.
That's the same as a bailiff here, then,
essentially, same thing. It's awful, right? This fella's getting millions of views. And where does it become? It's like that thing in Gladiator, when he shouts, "Oh, you're not entertained," because that's like what it's becoming. We're watching vulnerable people, and the bit which really upset me, there was a guy whose property it was, and he'd come for his sister, and he's quite a big guy, and he was terrified, and there was 3 of them. He was with his back to his own door. It was his own property and land. There's one there, and one there, and he was shaking. He was like this, and you could see his hand going and everything else. They ended up tasering him, handcuffing him, tying him to a tractor, kept spraying him and everything else. And I watched it, and I felt, it's like when, like car crash TV or something, when you watch something, you feel so dirty after watching it. But I did watch it, And I was thinking to myself, I want to get that fella.
I knew you were going to say that. I'd love to meet him.
I say somewhere at some point I'll come into contact with them and I'll pick an argument with them, because one-on-one you do them in.
Yeah.
You know, lose the taser, lose the gas, lose your big mate who's with you and your humming and everything. You'd have them off.
Yeah.
But I was like, but that's the danger of the concept of social media and everything else now. And it's such a shame when...
And that celebrity's a new thing that is, I suppose, in a way, unregulated. As in, like, if you wanted to put your voice out there, say, 10 years ago, not even that long ago, was it? 10 years ago, right? If you started being an arsehole, whether it was swearing, whether it was being abusive, whether it was generalising, being homophobic or whatever, or whether it was even just saying something a bit right-wing, the radio would cut you off.
Exactly.
And there'd be a delay, so sometimes it'd be even before you'd said.
Well, on live radio, it would be. Yeah.
Now, anyone could just do whatever they want.
Yeah, and that's the danger. I mean, I just called Patty Mayo a cunt. 10 years ago, if I was on the radio, I couldn't have called him a cunt.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the reality to it. But that is one of the things which terrifies me more than anything else nowadays. And football inherently is one of the most dangerous things for that as well. You see so many footballers falling prey to social media, to the issues which come with that. You know, the Fulham player, the kid who was signed.
Oh, Liverpool.
Yeah, you know, he had an issue.
Elliot Harvey.
Yeah, what
Harvey
he'd
Elliott.
said. Harvey Elliott, yeah, what he'd said and everything. It's just like, it's one of them things we don't know enough about. We don't know the effects of what it's going to be. We don't know the effects of the pressure. I mean, you look how many of the reality stars have killed themselves in the past few years. The duty of care from television companies who are producing these things onto them, it's been massively kind of like a big letdown to them. Yeah, and I think that's like...
Well, I think the problem is, and it's something that we have society and as humans have to start evolving to deal with very, very quickly, is kids, we mentioned before, like bullying in school, like it takes one thing to say something to your face, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Keyboard
I think you're a whatever, right? Yeah. But when there's no face there, I think this is what I mean. I can't understand the concept of opening my laptop or opening my phone, right? The little face thing, opening Twitter or whatever, and then finding a fucking celebrity or a footballer or whatever, and then giving him shit, and then looking at it before pressing send, and then pressing send. But I do think one of the reasons is that there isn't a face there.
No, there isn't
a face. There's no accountability. That's exactly.
And, you know, I mean, look at Deontay Wilder when the guy comes to the gym and he ends up doing him in. Because have you ever seen that video?
No,
It's great.
What was that?
So it was Deontay Wilder, before he was champion, I mean, probably about 5 years ago, some fella was giving him loads of shit. He said, come to the gym. And this went back and forth. The fella turned up the gym, he knocked him out. It was great. The fella ran off or something. It was, you can see it on YouTube of things. But I think that is what's going to get worse. I had a situation, I remember message boards. So when I worked in clubs years ago.
I want to ask you about that in a minute, don't forget society.
Okay, yeah, this is,
Bookmark it.
Yeah, this is a lot there. Well, there was at the time, message boards became popular.
Out All Night and stuff like that.
There was another one. There was a couple.
One.
Liverpool one,
massive.
wasn't it?
Yeah, Liverpool one. I was hated on them.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like,
well, yeah.
Oh, unbelievable. So I was like the bête noire for some reason, and I knew the reasons why, and I didn't care less. And someone in particular, I remember giving me so much shit. I remember being in Ibiza, getting in the airport, about to come home, and I sit down, and there he is. I thought, fuck him. I'm so straight up to him. I sat opposite him. Imagine this in the airport. I was going, what are you going to say? And I tortured him. Literally, there and then, all the way home, kept getting up on the plane. Got anything to say? Come on, here's your opportunity. Say it. Nearly crying. Wouldn't fucking say it to me, though. And that's the prime example of what you're talking about. These keyboard warriors won't ever come to your face and say it. And, you know, I live by the thing. If I'm going to say, I'm going to back her up. Yeah. There's no other way of doing that. But Clubland became so toxic because of things like that. It was unbelievable. There were factions of, you go there, you like this. You know,
I DJed in Liverpool for over 10 years, and I did find, I don't know whether it was just a Liverpool thing or it's just a DJ thing in general, but I did find the city, the nightlife part of it, quite clicky. I'm guessing that's where you're going.
I could tell you
the same DJs go to open the same bars, and then it's like, and you basically, I mean, once I hit maybe mid-20s, I wasn't asked really. I just thought, I'll let my music do the talking, and I ended up having very good residencies in some very good places for long periods, rather than flitting from thing to thing and doing, you know, events, so to speak. because I just didn't want to kiss anyone's ass. I was thinking, well, I believe that my skills are good enough, so, and that's all it should be, really. I shouldn't have to kiss someone's ass or turn up.
I was never part of the cliques, so I was, whilst I wasn't an outsider, I wasn't part of them, and there were reasons for that. One, I didn't drink, so, I saw it purely as work. Two, I didn't do drugs either, so I didn't party as such.
Yeah.
So that I was automatically an outsider just because of them things. Three, nature of how I am, I tell you to your face, and people hated that. So people used to say I was snotty or snobby, which is the opposite of what I am. Rude, the opposite of what I am. But you didn't have time for bullshit. So come flutter your eyelashes at me all you like, I'll tell you where to go. I remember standing outside one night. I was on Society. It was my night at the time. So Society, should we talk about then, I suppose? Yeah, so I was one of the original promoters of Society. And then I went and I came back and I created Centred Society.
Okay.
So I left. I went to work at Juice FM for a year and whatever. I created Play. And then when I left Juice, I created Scent, and I'd owned Scent for a number of years. So I was part of all that, and I'd promote the Satis at times. I wouldn't then do the, whatever. I was part of that for a long time. But I remember standing outside one night, and because at the time I'd stand with the doorman, so most promoters would be inside, but I wouldn't most of the time. I could be in and out, but mostly I'd stand outside. Various reasons of that. One, I'd been a doorman, so I preferred being outside anyway, and then being inside, I didn't have the patience. But two, you can control everything what's going on when you're outside, so your most vulnerable point is the door, the money, etc. So that was just, it was business. So a girl, she'll remain nameless, but let's just say she's, okay, how much can I get away with? She's a model. I think she's still a model, whatever. She loved herself, and she knew my boy's mum, my ex-partner, and she comes up, and I'm standing with the person doing the guest list, and she says, "Oh, I'm on the guest list." And so the person goes, "Oh, what's your name?" She says the name, and they say, "Who put you on the guest list?" And she went, "Oh, Emile." So I look, and I was like, "Okay." And she says a name, and I went, "Oh, your ex?" And she went, "Yeah." And I went, "Oh, I'm Emile." I remember she looked me up and down like this, and she went, "You're Emile?" And she looked at me with this disgust, and I went, "Yeah, and you're not fucking coming in." She went, "What?" I went, "Fuck off." And she was shocked. I thought, "Fuck you," like this. I mean, for years I had that people come, "Emile's put me on the guest list." "Really? Yeah." "Do you know Emile?" Yeah. "Do you really?" And I'm talking to them. I was like, "What?" But
so people knew your name from the forums, and they just
or
throw
just
it in,
my
throw it
name
in
in general, or for whatever reason,
yeah.
and that. And it's just like, oh my god, So, but they were interesting times. Society in particular was an interesting thing, and I learned
immensely
so much.
popular, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was, yeah. And it was hard because obviously Cream was difficult, so it was difficult to bring DJs in at times, and the city itself was very difficult at the time as well. What was going on, and we were on the the cusp of so much, and then we hit the recession, and then that killed Clubland essentially, and culturally it changed Clubland. I was tail end of the ecstasy generation into the cocaine generation. That was the worst thing ever. That shift of when ecstasy was in clubs, it was amazing. Not the ecstasy itself, because I wouldn't know, because I didn't take any drugs, but being around people on it was just fantastic. Clubs were amazing. When I was like 15 in places. I went to Quadrant Park. I tell people this, people don't believe me. I went to Quadrant Park to a kids' night, and you had to be 10, but I wouldn't have been 10. Maybe I was 10, and maybe I had to be 12, something like that, but I was big, so I got in. 2 Unlimited with a live PA. It was boss, but it was terrifying. I mean, like scary, because it was fights everywhere and things. But then going into I saw Cream when it came up. I got an offer to go there with my original night I created when I was 16, because that's how it started, running essentially raves and throwing these big raves when I was 16. And I talk about that now, and people go, "Oh yeah," because they get the concept of being an entrepreneur. Back then they didn't. So I was a 16-year-old running these raves, and it was completely different, and it was amazing. And then I went to Society. Well, it wasn't Society, it was created, and I worked for them, and etc. And yeah, I was there for a number of years, and then I made a decision to leave Clubland, and I got out and I was telling everyone, and people, to be fair, still talk to me about it, and whether it be DJs or promoters, I bump into them and they say, you got out at the right time, you were right. And I was telling everyone it was changing. Look, we're going to get hit by recession, and this, like, people would not expect to have them conversations when you're standing on a door with, like, of a club and you're promoting a night, and I'm saying there's a recession coming. Look, the problems. What do you mean? I mean, watch how people are coming in. They're sorting, they're paying in pound coins. They're looking through the money. You can tell there's not much money.
They were arriving more bevied, I'm guessing, as well, because they were getting tanked up.
Later.
Yeah,
that's what was happening. It was becoming later and later and later, and you were only getting a smaller window. And the toxicity in Clubland became, I mean, we were at war for such a long time as well, essentially. What went on in the city with, cars being blown up and, clubs being set on fire and things like that. And they were terrifying times. There was a huge amount going on in the city at that time as well. It was a real pivotal point, I think, in Liverpool. And like one of the car bombs, the one which went into the busy station on Tuebrook, which the
I remember
the thing that I'm talking about, off the estate, did he? And because they'd been raided the day or the week before, that was the largest explosion on the British mainland, which wasn't the IRA. And it wasn't in any of the national papers. This is the interesting thing. It wasn't in anything. And it was being routine that cars were being blown up in the city over clubs. It was like craziness.
That time at Society, I never actually went to Society, but I mean, I
did.
remember the music.
You liked it.
I was probably wanting to say, Emil's put me on the guest list.
I remember the music and
right.
the influence it had on pretty much every other venue in the city at the time. And I think we
we
always put the past on a pedestal. That's what everybody does. But I think more so with music and with clubs, because when you were involved, that time was just about pre-booth.
Yeah, I hate the concept.
And like it's not about the music anymore, really, is it? It's not about going out and dancing like no one was watching and all that.
In a booth,
exactly.
But then I've seen that to an extent where I was in Miami in the summer, and I've got a friend who runs most of the big clubs there, and we were in one of the nightclubs just before it opened. I had my boy with me. I'll have to add that bit in. And I asked him, how much is a booth? He said, start at $10,000 that one, $20,000 for that booth, and $30,000 upwards for the VIP there. And I went, what? And I went, for the night? He was like, yeah. I was like, how much you clear a week? And when I was amazed, so our concept of 100 quid for the booth, it's nothing compared to $10,000. And that's
please, something off the rail thrown in for that. Like, it's not on top of that.
I think you get a bottle. That's it.
Yeah, people bottle.
And a lot of them have a guaranteed spend on top of that. It's unbelievable.
But like, as well as it being pre-booth, it was pre everybody being glued to the phones. And I think the problem is now, like, and I don't just mean everyone glued to the phones as in like there's a booth sitting there and they're not talking because they're looking at the phones. What I mean is, like, nobody's in the moment anymore now. So everyone's living through the phones. They're doing this. And I used to see it. I was DJing in Soho Concert Square for 4 years, and in that 4 years, like, I seen it change so much that people weren't dancing with the mates anymore. They were dancing
with the phone,
like with the phone, like that, right?
And an audience.
But also, like, what they're doing is they're not in the moment anymore. Like, if you think back, you don't drink or take drugs, and you never have, but so you might not relate as much. But if I can think back now to like the 051 or even just bars in town, specific tunes, specific times. When I've been...
I could probably name them for you. The pivotal tunes, which were the time and the place which evoke such memories.
And it was a moment, and it's stored there somewhere that if I hear that tune, or if I see those people again, it brings me back.
I can smell it.
But
I can smell and feel the heat or the smell of something. And when I hear certain tunes, and I'm like, I laugh about it.
Yeah.
I talk to my boy about it, because he thinks the concept of people either paying to come to something I've done is funny, or me play when I DJ'd as well, paying to see me play was even funnier. And like, I played the first ever Creamfields, in Mattersley Bowl, Winchester, and someone sent me
I thought it was in Speak Airfield first.
No,
wasn't it?
First one, Mattersley Bowl, Winchester. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I remember driving, and I remember went with a DJ now who runs you know, EDC in America.
Yeah.
He's from Liverpool. He runs that. He's one of the main DJs and runs that. I remember going, and then I was hanging out with like Paul Oakenfold, Paul Van Dyke. I remember standing in the DJ booth with Paul Van Dyke as he was playing, and Paul Oakenfold and everything. And God, I would have been 18 if that. Maybe I was 17. Well, no, I think it would have been 18 at that point. But that was the first one. And I tell me boy things like this, and he laughs. He thinks it's really, really funny. But seeing the change in Clubland and the culture of it, and the shift, and like, you know, from ecstasy to cocaine was a massive one.
Yeah.
The more the drinking as well, that changed. The more look at me, and we used to get a lot of shit from that with that in society, because people would say, oh, it's full of posers, or it's full of people saying, look at me.
Yeah,
there were aspects of that, you know. I certainly wasn't one of them people, and I certainly had no time for a lot of them people, but I had an amazing time. I mean, like, I remember, like, remember Fred Legrand, Put Your Hands Up?
Yeah.
I had the PA of that as it went to number one. So it hit number one on the Thursday. Oh, it would have been the Thursday back then. And I had them on the Friday. And I remember the queue being, this is when we were at Duke Street then, all the way up the street, past the lights and everything else like that. I remember driving down it. I think I've got a video of it somewhere, or it's on YouTube or something, and seeing that and watching that drop, you know, and then taking I think it was them, they'd have to take the PA somewhere because they wanted to get various different things, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they were amazing times, though. You could do things like that. Now, I wouldn't even bother. Like, everyone's asked me, oh, would you bring the night back? You know, you see like Reminisce and things like this. Like, oh, I don't think I'd be bothered with the headache, to be fair. It's such a different kind of
it's different.
thing.
No? It's different. You seen it even in the Society building when it reopened. There's that bamboo thing.
Oh yeah.
And you had like, who did they have? Was it 50 Cent there or something like that?
Yeah.
And like, it was just, they obviously threw some serious money at
well,
that,
there was
like,
various reasons.
and then
there was
how long did it
money
last?
thrown at
See you
that,
later.
and,
Yeah.
you know, but it was kind of hard to see that, you know, from my perspective, because you leave so much of yourself in them places. You really, really do. You put so much into things, and you look back and you kind of, does it kill your legacy? Not your legacy, but the legacy of what it was. When we first opened Society, though, that was put before Duke Street. I don't think I was ever a fan of Duke Street in a way. I liked it, but Clubland had changed then. When we were in Fleet Street, that was unreal. Yeah. I always remember the open night. I always remember, it was a great story about the open night, and I've still got the video of this, but it was desperate to get it ready and open. And I brought my mate in to do the pyro. He's still like one of my best mates today, and he's a really like top level professional in the entertainment industry. But for some reason, he decided to put the pyro in. And I always remember the owner of the club coming in the night before it was, and looked up and went, what's with all the wires? It's like a bit of a Phoenix Night moment, this. And we went, what do you mean? He went, I can see the wires. Yeah, well, they need wires to work, the pyro. You didn't see the wires on Star Wars. You didn't see, George Lucas wouldn't show the wires. I went, it's not fucking Star Wars. I said, when the lights are off, you're not going to be able to see it.
Brian Potter,
you know, it is. It's like when he comes with Sammy the Snake. You know, he's like, you know, Sammy the Snake. Both the balls are like the eggs, so the dinosaur eggs. Yeah, it was like that. And I remember then, like, having to like rewire everything with the guy to help him and stuff. But I always remember opening night, sell out, packed. It was amazing until we fired the pyro, because he gaffer taped them. And with the heat and the sweat, it slipped. So they were called gerbs, and they're like fountains. And you watch it on the video, they dropped, they went, and they dropped even more. So the dance floor's got this big hole, because everyone's loving it at first, but then they realised they're on fire, and they hit themselves and everything. And it was brilliant. I never forget that night. But they were really, really good times. And I look back at them with, you know, a huge amount of fondness. I learned so much. I learned skills which I use to this day in what I do now, and it prepared you for any type of environment anywhere in the world. It's just a shame we don't have that now in this city, because we had such a vibrant like club life here. It was amazing. We had an amazing nighttime economy. Now, from what I can see, it's just horrible. Yeah, it's just shit. You know, it's a different. But
Knives have played a part in that as well, haven't they? In like sort of Slater Street, that sort of area, Duke Street still.
Yeah, I think they played the part in in shutting venues down, but I think some of the recent venues they shut down should have been fucking shut down anyway, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think, we always had problems with the police, and the policing was really bad. And, Cream had massive problems with the police. And there was a particular licensing inspector. I won't name him, but he was a horrible, horrible man. And he caused a lot of trouble for a lot of people over the years. And when he retired, it kind of got a bit easier after that. It turned out he was a real Christian, from what I got told. And so he's fundamentally very much opposed to anything which wasn't white and straight, from what I could gather.
Really?
So yeah, and that had a massive effect on how the police used to deal with you. And but policing in the city,
that makes sense, because if you played R&B, it was hard work.
Still hard work.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
That makes
hard
sense.
work.
Like, they used to get loads of shit from the licensing.
Really?
Or R&B venues, yeah. They
Greg,
always changed hands all the time.
Greg, do you remember coming to Baseline 29?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I used to teach, and part of teaching, I tried to make it as real world as possible. So my students said, we want to do an event. Okay, fine. I put the money up for it myself. And they wanted to do a grime event. It's called Garage back then. They was turning into grime. No venue would take it. And in the end, we did it it was the Picket then, but it's District now. We did it there. And I've still got the emails of this, which I'm really proud of. We got Chipmunk, who's now Chip. He played for us. He must have been about 15. We had Skepta agreed for £1,000. I think it was £1,000 for Skepta. And we brought people to the city, which you wouldn't get here. But the problems we had with that was really, really difficult. But there was nowhere for people to go. I mean, I come from Toxteth, so it's like, that's my community where I'm from. But the amount of racism, which was, for club goers or nighttime goers, you got past, Hardman Street, and if you were black, it was very difficult for you in Liverpool. And in many ways, I actually don't think that's changed still to this day. You see that a lot, especially if you're going to do anything with grime or
Camel Club was a great venue, and it's gone now.
Yeah,
but
friend.
I was there.
Longevity, didn't it? Camel Club.
I was resident in Camel for a few years, and but numerous managers would come in, because obviously it's a big brand. It's part of Revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They owned it.
I think I know the person you're going to talk about now, by the way. But
But various managers would come in and try and make it whiter.
Yeah.
Get you to play house, and you'd be sitting there thinking.
The reason why it was well known, because it played boss hip hop.
Exactly, that's the reason I wanted for years. I wanted the DJ there, because I used to always end up in there because it was boss.
Yeah.
And they played proper R&B, not like commercial Nelly and all that. Like,
but you look at the DJs who were playing there. Pookie, Adam Speechley was playing, and you had various other DJs who would play. It was great.
Yeah,
was that what it should have been?
Yeah. There's a good lad called Lee, Chinese lad who we know very well, who was very good there. He was there for years, and I was a big fan of his as a customer. And then I was resident in there, and I loved it. And then if you got a new management team in, or even one or two, they'd be trying to just
change it,
just tone it down a little bit. No grime, no heavy hip hop, just commercial stuff only. And even several times you'd have to start playing house, and then week on week, the regulars would stop coming, and then they changed, someone else coming, they changed the mind. Let's get it back to the way it used to be.
But
and then
I don't think nothing's changed though, because if you look at grime, the evolution of grime especially, it was an underground thing which was synonymous with trouble.
Yeah.
And, UK garage into grime, etc. And then it became very commercial. Skepta, Stormzy,
Dizzy Rascal.
Yeah, or Dizzy Rascal I've never been a fan of in that way, but he had a place in what went on massively, so full credit to him. And now you've seen it going back again, the demonization of drill music, the concept of drill music is no different to grime, it's no different to hip hop. It's young people talking about their lives and what they're going through or gonna do. There's nothing wrong in that, but it's demonised right away. And if you look at London especially, the orders from a licensing perspective, I think it was JME did a really good thing on it for Vice, and spoke about like how so many clubs were shut down systematically. We got that here as well. There's no real avenues unless you are doing middle of the road. It used to be house, for instance, would be it, or now I wouldn't even kind of know what it is in the city. I mean, I suppose an element of R&B now more so in the city, but if you kind of went sideways on that, your license was gone, or you were put under tremendous pressure not to do it.
Yeah, I've seen it. I know another lad, Spy, You must know Spud.
Well, yeah.
Good lad again, you know, and he's gone from venue to venue to venue.
Course,
Because they all end up closing.
Always. And it's not like there isn't a market for it here.
Yeah.
That's the frustration.
Yeah,
And, you know, for years we'd have to go to Manchester to see something, or to another city. Still, even to this day, we have to do that. Like, you know, I spend my life in Manchester with my boy, going to concerts because they don't come to Liverpool. And that's like really frustrating. And, you know, for someone as in myself who can create something, promote something like that, of which I've tried to do here, I know how difficult it can be. I mean, I had a situation where, how do I have to describe it to say this, where I'm not going to talk about what it was, but I'll talk about, we tried to book, we booked artists, and the police in London, and I never knew this, but there is a national music crime unit, right? And I think it's based in Glastonbury, and there's a unit specifically dealing with music related crime, okay? And they hold intelligence on performers. This is like J. Edgar Hoover stuff, this is McCarthy era stuff. And they approached someone in Merseyside Police who approached us and said, you can't have that artist. And they told us that the artist had been arrested on XYZ charges, was currently on bail for XYZ. If we had them, there would be problems. Come on. It's like phenomenal. And I'm not talking 10 years ago. I'm talking 2017, 2018, last year. That shows you, you know, the inherent level of racism with that is phenomenal. It really, really is. And I don't think that's something which is going to change either, you know, which is a shame, especially in a city which is as vibrant as Liverpool. You know, we've got the oldest Chinese community, we've got one of the oldest black communities in Liverpool. The city itself is a cauldron of people from all over the world. We're a port, you know. I'm like third generation family here. I'm only third, that's it. You know, my gran came over, she got off the boat here. You know, she lived 5-10 minutes. They moved a bit up, but didn't get far. It's literally like, you know, I was explaining this the other day. My great grandfather, born in Dublin, came here, couldn't get a job, and he was a horseman. And he was walking along. It was not far from here, and a horse had fallen, and they were going to shoot it. They were going to kill it because they couldn't get it up, and he got it up. And he ended up getting a job for the railway, working with the horses, and worked for the railway all his life. And then his son went and worked for the railway as well. And, you know, typical immigrant stories. Yeah. But we've kind of lost so much of that again as well. We see immigration, like talking about Tommy Robinson before, immigration being a threat. The irony, them 200 people there that day will have been sons and daughters of immigrants. Fact. Probably 10-20% might not have been. And they're that thick. They don't realise it, and then that goes back to social media and what they're being fed.
It's sad. You got to feel sorry for them. People who are narrow-minded, I just think it's very sad.
I just want to punch most of them, to be fair, like, because I've gone past the point of trying to educate them now. You know, I was very close to getting Tommy Robinson. I was 6 foot away from him.
Really?
Until they whacked me the busies, yeah. And the police protected him.
Would you really have gone for him?
I had him. I was like 6 foot away from him, yeah. And they whacked me and they threw me over the fence. It was quite funny because my boy was with me. And he wasn't phased one bit. And he was shouting at them as well. But yeah, they proper whacked me, threw me over the fence. Because we'd worked out where his car was, you see. So whilst everyone was looking at him, where they were in Bootle, there's only one way in and out. And we knew he wasn't getting through there. But I knew there was steps coming up to Dunnans Bridge Road. And so I just went round. And then a few of us came round. And we had the car. And as soon as they tried to bundle them up, we went at it and that, like, and it just went off then. They had the dogs on us and everything. And we were going, why are you protecting them? Why? But in Huyton, they took over the whole estate, and that whole estate came out for him. And I was shocked. I mean, they were like, you know, a whole estate supporting him.
Surely not.
Honestly, Greg, you go online, go on YouTube, you'll see the videos, you'll see me shouting at them in the videos.
Horrific.
It's unreal. And not only did he support them, he was travelling with a full AV setup. So he had the portable screens, like you see in big events.
Yeah.
He had that on the grass in Bootle and in Huyton. And he's giving his speeches. He'd got run years ago, but he was allowed to come here. It was frightening. But the good thing about it, and I know the person who did it, where he was standing in Bootle, 2 doors down, the lad was a DJ, and he's gay, and he knew he was coming. He put the sound system outside and he blasted them tunes and he was drowning them out, and we had everything. Bob Marley, Modern Love, his choice of tunes, we had Benny Hill, we had everything. It was amazing. It was really good. But talking about the far right coming here and going back to football where we started, without some of the football lads, they'd have got a real stronghold here. And every time they've come, it's been a lot of the lads from football who go the match, older lads as well, but Liverpool and Evertonians who come out and deal with them. Good lads, you know, and without lads like that, I don't know what'll happen, because, you know, Antifa, as Trump calls them, like middle class kids who decide to put masks on, you know, as they're shouting at them to take the masks off, they've got masks on, and I'm looking like going, and they're made up when they get arrested themselves because it's like a badge of honor for them, but they're just not doing anything. There's only a few ways you can deal with some of these individuals, you know, and sometimes you've just got to deal with them in certain ways. But, you know, obviously for me, because of my mum as well, and she's, you know, like Combat 18, gave her death threats at times, and we lived with that all our lives, so I was never bothered. You know, I've been rumbling with them since I was probably around 15. I spent my life on demos. You know, I marched for Mandela, I marched for the miners, I marched, you know, I remember standing behind Derek Hatton when we spoke on, you know, there's that picture of him in the town hall and there's all the people on Castle Street. I remember being there. Yeah, I remember, it's a great picture. I remember being there at the time in the town hall and things, you know, when there was the 47 with militants and things like that. I remember all that because of my mother. So for me growing up, even though I'm very commercial in nature and very I suppose in many ways I'm a true capitalist. You know, I go out there, I make and create things, I make money or try to make money. So that, I suppose, is capitalism. But I'd like to think I had a lot more politics and ethical ways about me. And I've stood up for that, you know, over the years, much to my peril at times, you know, which has cost me, but I couldn't not do that.
Well, people will always point the finger if you're making a success of yourself, in terms of, you know, you mentioned about you're a capitalist there, but, you know, actions speak louder than words, and really, like, that's about how you conduct yourself within your organisation. And if you're in charge of people at the top of the hierarchy, it's about how you allow those successes that you have to trickle down and let those...
I think it's about being fair and being honest, and that's what I've always tried to be, especially in business, which sometimes can be really hard, especially working in football, which is quite a difficult business to work in terms of how it is, and the concept of football. Everyone thinks, one, you're a millionaire when you're working in football, you know. Two, think you get paid really well because you're working in football. You don't. You know, fortunately, the big money in football doesn't trickle down unless you're a player or a manager or own a club. You ain't getting any of that money. It's very, very, very difficult. And even though football will buck any economic trend, will grow, and it will continue to grow. I can't see that bubble bursting. Although you've got issues of, you know, clubs like Bury going under. Macclesfield are about to go bump. You know, the players were saying tonight that he didn't get paid by 6 p.m. They weren't playing. Bolton, a really interesting one. You've got local clubs who are on the precipice, quite easily could go under like that. It's very difficult. It doesn't filter all the way down, but it's still growing massively. And, you know, I know that from working across the world. The growth is, especially in the US, phenomenal.
Yeah, it's interesting in football because the growth is so prevalent, and the game is like becoming such a big business. But it's like that old adage of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, because there's more and more clubs going up, threatening to go bust. It's every week now. You hear about another Bury, Bolton, Macclesfield, don't you?
I have Premier League clubs say to me, "Can we split your payments?" And I'm like, okay. And these are big clubs, and it's not a lot of money.
You say the same about the NHS, well, you know, about certain big customers, that clients that you have, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest customers, the NHS and the worst payers.
Yeah,
the worst payers. And then if you're not getting your bills paid on time, if you're not getting paid on time, you can't pay your bills on time. And then you've got governmental agencies ringing you, and, you know, sort of saying you're late with this payment, and it's like, well, they've been late with the last 6 to me.
I've argued this. I've had the opportunity at times to, you know, been asked, you know, I've spent time in Parliament. I've had various people come to me over the years asking opinions on things. And I argue cash flow is the biggest problem we have in this country. No liquidity in terms of how you can borrow. We suffer from it massively. It kills us. Like now, no one paid us in October. We've got so much money outstanding.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating. You're constantly chasing. You spend more time chasing whether you should be growing. Yeah. And that's a massive problem. And I find the bigger the companies are, the worse it is.
Yeah,
totally. That's such a shame because it just takes companies down. Yeah. You'll find that with most companies go under, it's because of cash flow, nothing else.
Yeah,
it's the one. It's really bad in this country. And I know there's been talk about. I think one of Labour's policies is about changing how payments are made in terms of action you can take after that 30 days because you need to, because people just treat 30 days now as 90 days, and it's very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
And football's awful for it. Yeah. But you hear about these agents getting millions for this and millions here. It just does not trickle
people
down.
Think and the game is awash with money at a certain level, isn't it?
At a certain level, yeah.
But as you say, it definitely doesn't trickle down.
But I read an article on so the MLS, which is the American League, doesn't make money. They make money off other things. They own the way the league's structured. They own it was actually the Athletic. The article's really good. They own TV rights to other things as well, and the way they sell their TV rights alongside other stuff is what brings the money in for the clubs. All the clubs are losing money, and one of the guys in one of the MLS clubs described it as every club in the MLS is like a burning dumpster. Some are burning a little bit more than others. Wow. And it was a great analogy, and it really, really is. I mean, a lot of them have got better facilities than some Premier League grounds now. It's amazing
Stadia
how they
they've
do
got.
things. Oh, unreal.
And yet Beckham is still pushing ahead with opening a new one.
Well, but there's a reason why, because he got his franchise really cheap. So when he signed for the league, part of his contract was that he had the ability to buy a franchise at a discounted rate, and I'm sure it was something like 50 million. Now you're talking, I think, minimum is 300 to 600 million for a franchise.
Wow. And where he's going in Miami, the sort of potential to fill a stadium is high, isn't it?
Yeah, but I know staff there, and I was talking with people about this. I don't know how easy it's going to be for him. It's either going to be this amazing success or it's going to be a disaster. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground because a lot of competition. But the good thing they have to go on is Orlando City and how they did their expansion. And it was Adrian Heath, ironically, who did it. And they were a client at the time of when they did their expansion. And that was very interesting. They did it really well. They really took advantage of the Brazilian market because Florida is like Blackpool for Brazilians. So, because there's about 20 daily flights from Rio, Sao Paulo, and it's not long when you think about it. It's not that far. So they all come up to Florida. So you had all these Brazilians in Florida on holiday all year. And so they did a deal. They sold some of it to a Brazilian billionaire, and basically they hit the Brazilian market, and they did really well out of that. So whether Beckham can do something like that similar in Miami in terms of how Miami is with tourism and things, that might work for him. But what is interesting now, and I laugh about this, but now you see everywhere you go, people walking around in football tops in America. It's just crazy. Rappers. And that's like the Liverpool thing's a prime example of that. They brought up Drake with the New Balance thing, and it's a massive factor. And the crossover, I was watching a hip-hop program on Netflix the other week, and there's a kid in the audience with an Atlanta United top on, because it's now trendy to wear them tops. I mean, you wouldn't wear them here. We wouldn't wear them because you're like, look, you would.
Because it was just niche hipster at one point, wasn't it?
But
and
now
it was English clubs. But
now it's like now you see loads of kids here walking around with Barca tops on or Juve tops on with. On the back, you know what I mean?
PSG is the prime example of that. The deal they did with Nike, with Jordan, and how that kind of took things to another level with them. But like Atlanta United's a great example. Brand new franchise. 70,000 seater stadium or 60,000 is in the top 10 attendances of world football every year. Sell it out every home game. Unreal. The training ground cost $60 million. Amazing. I was there the other month. I'm back in 2 weeks. Just unreal how they've done it. And the city, when there's a game on, is painted in their colours, whether it be flags, tops. It's like being back in Brazil. I mean, I went to see, who did I go to see? Palmeiras versus Corinthians, which is the derby, and in the Allianz there, and it was madness. I mean, there was tanks outside, and it was crazy, but it was unreal. It was one of the best things I've ever seen, and you're seeing that now in the US with soccer, That's like, I went over for one of the last games of the season a few weeks ago, you know, sell out, how it was going in. They had an NBA player, you know, like on the pitch. It was just madness. And that's where you're seeing the growth now. And I argued this years ago when I first went out to America. I used to come home, used to go, you just need to look at America. And everyone would be going, no. And now I've got all them same people coming to me saying, can you get me a job out there? Because one, the money's great, and two, the lifestyle's even better.
Yeah.
And it's growing so much. It's the highest participation sport in the US now. People don't realise that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so with all the kids and everything else, because one, they don't want to play American football anymore because of the concussion issues. Two, basketball's hard to get into, essentially, because it's it's only a limited number. So soccer now, the growth is just,
especially for girls as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but the men's through the roof. I mean, it's just like the growth, the amount of people playing and the amount of money in the game there dwarfs what we have here. I mean, just dwarfs
To scale.
Yeah, frightening. It's like it should be how it should be here, but they have a pay-to-play system. So people invest in the kids, they invest in, because they're used to paying for education, they're used to paying for services where we're not.
Yeah.
So, you know, your kid goes and plays footy and he pays £3 subs, where the equivalent in the America would be $3,000 for a term. But there's a good story with that about the so-called lack of knowledge, because there isn't anymore, and I would disagree with it. But and I 99% sure this story is true because the person who told me. But there was a kids football game on a Sunday in just outside New York, and the ref didn't turn up. And one of the people watching said, "I'll ref," and they went, "Oh, okay, sure, yeah, I can ref, whatever." Guys reffing, parents are giving them loads of shit. One shouting, "Do you even know anything about soccer? You haven't got a clue, ref." You know, they're giving them loads. Half time comes. A person who he was with just walks over to them, to the loudest group, says, "Excuse me, do you know who that is?" And they go, no, he hasn't got a clue about soccer. And they went, "It's Pep Guardiola."
Oh, really?
I see, you remember the year Pep took out?
Yeah, when he was travelling.
Whether it's true or not, I don't even care, because it's a great story, but I'm more inclined to believe it because of the person who told me, who was supposedly there, and I do believe that. And
can we just cut this bit out and just use it as a story for the Athletic?
It's
when Pep,
yeah, do you know what?
Yeah.
I wonder whether you could find out that it might just be wrong, but I'd have to say who told me the story, but it's a great story, and I'd love to. You know, I should have asked him. I can text someone to find that out.
This is where it was Pablo Zabaleta, but it's still a good story.
I'd say the best person who's footballer to tell stories is, do you remember Juan Pablo Angel?
Yeah.
And I was asking him about Colombia. So we had dinner a few months ago, and we got talking. So
he's going there.
Yeah, you were saying, yeah. So it was him, Patrick Vieira, and a few others. We all had dinner one night, and we got talking, and it was the first time I'd met him, and we kind of like warmed to each other, and we kind of went off to sit, because I told him about my Colombian mate in Miami, and said, "Oh, he's a big fan of you," and he was like, "Oh, who is he?" So I was telling him about him. He went, "Get him on the phone." And at this point, my friend had been partying for days. They took a private jet to Vegas, and they have this, I think they call themselves the Outside Boys or something, and the parties were amazing that they were at and doing and all this stuff. So we FaceTime my mate in Vegas, and so this guy is best mates with Drake, every major rapper, everything. He's a lovely, lovely human being, and he you should get him on your podcast, because his story's phenomenal, by the way. He was 43 stone, and now he's down to like 20 or something like that in a space of a year. Yeah, I mean, literally, like, he's just a lovely guy. And I put him onto Juan Pablo Angel, and he started talking, and it was the brilliant.
Starstruck.
Oh, he was, though. He was like, because you were my hero growing up, but he was saying to him, "Look, I saw you out, you want a yacht, you want this, when you come to Miami." He was saying, "Oh, I've got to come for this, no problem, I'll take care of you." And they talk now. But I started to ask him, I'm a big Narcos fan, and there's a book. Do you ever read Power the Dog?
No.
Don Winslow. You've got to read it. So Don Winslow wrote Power the Dog, and then he wrote Cartel as a follow-up. And they're amazing books, also about Colombian and Mexican cartels, just fantastic. I'm a big Narcos fan. So I started asking about Colombia, saying, you know, you're from Medellin, what was it like? Oh, he said it was crazy. He was telling me about when he used to meet like, you know, Pablo Escobar. I was, you know, here we are in this hotel in Wales, and he's telling me this, you know, in Celtic Man in Wales it was, and I'm going, so what was he like? He said he was just like, he just like had death around him. He said he was nice, but you could just feel it, and you know, to hear mad stories about that. I think that's what I like. I'm not a football fan, ironically. I should have explained this. I grew up playing basketball, I love basketball, so I wasn't a football fan. So coming into football was just, I mean, you know this, the most left field turn you could ever imagine, which is good for me because I'm objective with it as well.
I think that's really helped you, doesn't it?
It has, yeah, massively. And it's allowed me to be objective, how I see the game and how I see what it's about. And I don't ever get kind of starstruck, but I remember little things. So like, I remember when I met Pep Guardiola the first time, and he did something which was so human and so nice. I really liked him. We were in City, and I'd been talking with the staff, and we come through, and he comes in and he says, "Oh, hey, you're yeah, nice to meet you." And he turned and spoke to his analyst about something. And he turned his back to me, and he's speaking, and he stops himself mid-sentence and turns around and says, "I'm so sorry," and physically moves so his back wasn't to me. And I went, I like that. That's, you know, you're Pep Guardiola, but you've got manners, and you've got something about, you know, we know he's politically sound and all these other things, but I was like, all right, I kind of like, you know, when your respect level goes up, where someone's respect level would be for, he's like one of the greatest managers. I'm like, he had manners, you know, which meant just as much as him winning what he's won and things.
Yeah, absolutely, it does.
He's a human being.
Yeah,
but I think football brings so many different characters in, and but it's like working in clubs, there's no difference.
Yeah.
You know, just not getting shot at or stabbed.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Amen to that.
Yeah, hopefully, unless you're in Colombia and you know, those things which come with that one. So,
listen, we've done officially the longest episode.
Have we?
So yeah,
Amazing.
let's wrap it up.
And you've probably got about 5%. You know,
We have.
I think I've only called people a few things a few times.
We'll do part two, won't we?
Well, yeah, anytime.
Thank you, mate.
No problem.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Appreciate it.
Very good, that.
No problem.
So many things I wanted to ask you.